In this video, we're going to be talking about the ultimate devil fruits lore. Let's get started with the origins of the devil fruit. Episode 1100, Powers on a Different Level, Luffy vs. Lucci, finally gave us the answer we've been waiting for since episode 1, and honestly, it's way crazier than anything I could have imagined. Look, we've all been wondering about devil fruits since Luffy first stretched his arm back in Romance Dawn. Where do these things actually come from? And don't tell me you haven't stayed up late reading theories on Reddit about whether they're alien technology or some ancient weapon nonsense. I've seen every crackpot theory imaginable, and most of them were honestly better than what I thought Oda would give us. For 20 plus years, we've gotten absolutely nothing solid about devil fruit origins. The world government acts like it's the biggest secret in the world, which always made me suspicious they were hiding something huge. Religious nuts in the series keep calling them devil's work, but that felt way too simple for Oda's style. Even smart characters like Robin could only guess, and that frustrated me more than any cliffhanger ever did. But here's the thing about Vegapunk, this guy is scary smart. We're talking about someone who figured out how to create artificial devil fruits when the world government couldn't do it for 800 years. He discovered lineage factors, which is basically the DNA of devil fruit powers. If anyone was going to crack this mystery, it had to be him. I always suspected he knew more than he was letting on. The setup for this revelation is absolutely perfect, and I have to give Oda credit here. Vegapunk is watching Luffy go full Gear 5 against Lucci, seeing the sun god Nika transformation in all its ridiculous glory. You can almost see the light bulb moment happening in real time. It's like he's finally connecting the dots between everything he's researched and what he's witnessing right now. Then, Vegapunk drops the bomb that changed everything I thought I knew about One Piece. Devil fruits aren't random magical objects or ancient weapons or alien gifts. They're literally human desires, made real. When someone throughout history desperately wanted a specific power badly enough, that wish became a devil fruit. My first reaction was, wait, that's it? But the more I thought about it, the more brilliant it became. This means every devil fruit represents someone's deepest dream. The Gomu Gomu no Mi exists because someone once craved the ultimate freedom that rubber powers could provide. Someone desperately wanted to control fire, so the Mera Mera no Mi was born. It's both simple and mind-blowing at the same time. What really gets me is how this reframes every devil fruit user we've ever seen. Luffy is wielding someone's ancient dream of boundless freedom. When Ace used his fire abilities, he was channeling someone's passionate desire to command flames. That's actually beautiful in a weird way, and totally fits Oda's style of making everything more emotional than you expect. This also explains something that always bugged me about devil fruits. Why do some people seem naturally suited for their powers while others struggle? If fruits are born from specific desires, then they probably gravitate toward people who share those same dreams and ambitions. Luffy and his rubber fruit both represent the desire for absolute freedom. The connection runs way deeper than just random chance. The sea curse finally makes sense too, and this might be my favorite part of the whole theory. The ocean rejects devil fruit users because these powers represent humanity trying to break natural laws. The sea is basically saying, you want to cheat nature? Fine, but you're banned from my domain forever. It's petty in the best possible way. Now here's where things get really interesting. When you start thinking about specific devil fruits we know. Take Chopper's human fruit, too. That means somewhere in history, an animal desperately wished to become human. That's genuinely heartbreaking when you think about it. Some creature was so lonely or curious about human life that their desire created a fruit specifically for animals who wanted to join our world. Or consider Blackbeard's darkness fruit. What kind of person's desire created something that represents pure void and absorption? Someone who felt so empty inside that they wanted the power to consume everything around them? That's dark stuff, and it makes me wonder if devil fruits carry emotional baggage from their creators. The Op no Mi is another fascinating case. Someone desperately wanted the power to heal and save lives, but also to manipulate and control others at the cellular level. That duality suggests the original desire wasn't pure. It was someone who wanted to be a godlike surgeon, capable of both miracles and horrors. Here's what really excites me though. This theory suggests new devil fruits could still be created. If someone's desire becomes powerful enough, it might manifest as a new fruit with abilities we've never seen before. The system is still active and growing. That opens up insane possibilities for future story developments. I love how this explanation makes rare fruits make perfect sense. Mythical Zoans are incredibly rare because very few people in history have had desires specific enough to create fruits that grant legendary creature abilities. Meanwhile, basic paramecia fruits are more common because lots of people throughout time have wished for similar simple powers. But here's my controversial take. I think this theory might be too good to be the complete truth. Oda loves his layered mysteries, and something this clean feels almost too perfect. I suspect there's more to discover about the mechanism that actually turns desires into fruits, or maybe there's some ancient civilization or technology involved in the process that Vegapunk hasn't figured out yet. Think about the logistics for a second. How does a desire become a physical fruit? Is there some cosmic force monitoring human wishes? Does it happen automatically when desire reaches a certain intensity? Are there rules about what kinds of desires can become fruits? Vegapunk gives us the what, but not the how, and that makes me think we're only getting part of the picture. What really hits me is how this changes the entire meaning of Devil Fruit battles. Every fight becomes a clash between different human dreams and ambitions made manifest. When Akainu's magma clashed with Ace's fire, it was two different desires for destructive power competing against each other. One represented controlled destruction, the other, absolute annihilation. This revelation also makes me reconsider some of the weirder devil fruits we've seen, like Foxy's slow fruit, DNA Shun, who desperately wanted the power to slow down time, probably someone who felt like life was moving too fast, who wanted more time with loved ones, or to savor precious moments. Even the seemingly silly fruits suddenly have emotional weight behind them. The timing of this reveal is genius too. We're in the final saga, and Oda is finally answering the biggest mysteries while setting up even larger questions. This Devil Fruit origin theory doesn't just solve one puzzle, it reframes the entire series around the theme of human dreams and ambition transcending natural limitations. I'm also fascinated by what this means for awakening. If Devil Fruits are crystallized desires, then awakening might happen when a user's personal desires align perfectly with the original wish that created their fruit. That's why it's so rare. You need perfect emotional synchronization between past and present desires. Consider how this affects our understanding of the Ancient Kingdom and the Void Century. What if that civilization's downfall was connected to devil fruits somehow? Maybe they discovered how to artificially create desires strong enough to generate fruits, leading to an arms race that destroyed them. The world government might be suppressing this knowledge to prevent history from repeating. The implications for Inherited will become massive too. If devil fruits carry the dreams of people from the past, maybe certain fruits are drawn to people who share similar inherited will. The connection between Luffy and Nika might be deeper than we thought. Maybe they're connected by the same fundamental desire for freedom that spans centuries. Honestly, this episode made me appreciate devil fruits in a completely new way. They're physical proof that human dreams can literally reshape reality if they're strong enough. That's the kind of optimistic, ambitious message that makes One Piece special, and it perfectly fits the series' themes about following your dreams no matter how impossible they seem. But most importantly, this revelation makes every Devil Fruit user a guardian of someone else's dream, whether they know it or not. That responsibility adds a whole new layer to what it means to wield these powers in the world of One Piece. Devil Fruits being human desires made real is shocking, but Punk Hazard shows the truth is even darker, as these powers instantly reincarnate into the nearest fruit when a user dies. Episode 602. History's Worst Weapon of Mass Destruction. Shinokuni delivers one of the most important moments in Devil Fruit lore, when we finally see what happens when a Devil Fruit user dies, and honestly, it's both beautiful and terrifying at the same time. We've all heard the rumors about Devil Fruit reincarnation, but this episode gives us the first actual proof in the anime. For years, fans debated whether Devil Fruits really came back after their users died, or if that was just another world government lie to keep people scared. Some people thought the powers just disappeared forever. Others believed they randomly showed up somewhere in the world, but nobody had concrete evidence either way. I was in the camp that thought they just vanished because that seemed more realistic, but boy was I wrong. The whole Punk Hazard situation is completely nuts, and that chaos creates the perfect setup for this revelation. Caesar Clown has been using this massive slime creature called Smiley as his ultimate weapon, and he's about to feed it some special candy that's supposed to make it even deadlier. The Straw Hats are running around trying not to die, Caesar's own guys are freaking out, and everyone watching the broadcast has no idea they're about to see something that changes everything we know about Devil Fruits. You can feel something bad coming when Smiley eats Caesar's candy. Bubbles start forming all over the thing's body, and even Caesar's subordinates are getting nervous, which should tell you something because these guys work for a psychopath. Sanji immediately notices the chemical reaction happening, and Kinemon gets that sinking feeling in his gut. Everyone knows this is about to go sideways fast, but nobody realizes they're about to witness the most important devil fruit moment in the entire series. Then Smiley literally explodes and dies, turning into this deadly Shinokuni gas that starts chasing everyone across the island like some horror movie nightmare. But here's what blew my mind. While everyone's panicking about the poison gas, there's this bag of apples that got tossed around in all the chaos, and one of those apples starts doing something weird. Swirls appear on its skin, it changes color to blue, and suddenly, you're looking at a brand new Sarah no Mi model. Axolotl sitting right there. The reincarnation happens so fast it's almost scary. Smiley dies, and literally within seconds, that apple transforms into a devil fruit. No waiting around, no mysterious journey across the ocean, no months of wondering where the power went. The fruit just jumps from the dying user straight into the nearest apple, and boom, new devil fruit ready to go. This completely destroyed every theory I had about how devil fruit reincarnation worked. I always thought maybe the powers traveled back to some devil fruit tree somewhere, or they randomly appeared in fruits all over the world. But seeing it happen in real time proves there are actual rules to this system that nobody talks about. The power doesn't wander around looking for any random fruit, that specifically finds one nearby that can become the same type of devil fruit. What really gets me is how this changes everything about devil fruit battles. Every time someone with powers dies, their fruit could immediately become available to whoever's nearby. Can you imagine if this had happened during Marineford? If Ace's fire powers had reincarnated right there on the battlefield instead of ending up with Doflamingo later, the entire war could have gone completely different. Some random marine or pirate could have grabbed that Mera no Mi and changed history. This also explains why the world government is so paranoid about devil fruit users and why they try to cover up deaths. If regular people knew that powers reincarnated instantly in the same area, every single battle would turn into a treasure hunt. Pirates would start targeting devil fruit users to literally steal their powers the second they died. That's both genius and terrifying. The Smiley situation also reveals something interesting about artificial devil fruits. Caesar made Smiley using artificial methods, but when it died, the power still followed the same reincarnation rules as natural fruits. That makes me wonder if the difference between real and fake devil fruits isn't as big as everyone thinks. Maybe Vegapunk's artificial fruits work the same way, which could be huge for understanding how the world government creates new weapons. Here's something that really bothers me though. If devil fruits reincarnate instantly and locally, why doesn't everyone know this? You'd think after hundreds of years, someone would have figured out the pattern. Either the world government has been really good at covering this up, or most devil fruit users die in situations where nobody survives to spread the word. Both options are pretty dark when you think about it. The visual proof also suggests that devil fruits have some kind of intelligence or will guiding them. The power didn't randomly jump into any fruit lying around, it specifically chose an apple and turned it into the exact same Sarah no Mi that Smiley had. That level of precision means these powers know what they are and they know where they belong. This makes me wonder about all the devil fruit users who have died throughout the series. Where did Whitebeard's earthquake power go? What about all those devil fruit users who died during the Void Century? Are there reincarnated fruits sitting around waiting to be discovered? The possibilities are endless and kind of scary. The timing of when Oda revealed this information is brilliant too. He dropped this massive lore bomb in the middle of a chaotic action sequence where most people were focused on the poison gas and whether the Straw Hats would survive. But for anyone paying attention to the background, this moment answered one of the biggest mysteries in the entire series. I also love how this episode shows that devil fruit research isn't just theoretical anymore. Caesar might be completely insane, but his experiments with Smiley proved that we can actually study how devil fruits work in real time. That opens up possibilities for understanding awakening, artificial fruits, and maybe even how to prevent reincarnation if someone wanted to permanently destroy a devil fruit power. The reincarnation cycle also makes me think differently about inherited will and destiny in One Piece. If devil fruits choose where to reincarnate based on proximity, then the people who find them are in the right place at the right time for a reason. Maybe there's more to devil fruit inheritance than we realize. What really sticks with me is how this changes the stakes for every future devil fruit battle. Now that we know powers reincarnate instantly, every fight becomes more than just defeating an enemy. It becomes about controlling what happens to their abilities afterward. Smart fighters will probably start bringing fruits with them to battles, just in case they need to capture a reincarnating power. The animation team did something really clever here too. They made the apple transformation super obvious with all the swirling patterns and color changes, but they tucked it into a corner of the screen while all the main action was happening. It's like they wanted to reward viewers who were paying close attention to every detail, which is classic One Piece storytelling. Think about how this affects treasure hunting in the One Piece world. Pirates are potentially sitting on reincarnated devil fruits that could be worth more than any treasure chest. Every abandoned island, every battlefield, every place where devil fruit users have died could be hiding incredible powers just waiting to be discovered. The proximity rule also raises questions about devil fruit farms or controlled reincarnation. What if someone figured out how to manipulate this system? They could theoretically kill devil fruit users in rooms full of regular fruits and guarantee the power reincarnates exactly where they want it. That's the kind of horrifying possibility that probably keeps world government officials awake at night. This episode also makes me appreciate how much thought Oda put into the devil fruit mythology. He built an entire ecosystem around how these abilities exist, transfer, and perpetuate themselves throughout the world. The reincarnation system adds layers of strategy, politics, and philosophy to what could have been simple superpowers. The smiley moment might seem small compared to all the action happening around it, but it's actually one of the most important devil fruit revelations in the entire series. It proves that these powers have a life cycle, they follow patterns, and they can be studied and understood. That knowledge could change everything about how people approach devil fruits in the world of One Piece. What gets me most excited is thinking about how this information could be used strategically. Imagine if Law or someone equally smart figured out the exact mechanics of devil fruit reincarnation. They could potentially plan assassinations around fruit collection, or even sacrifice artificial devil fruit users to create specific powers in controlled environments. The strategic possibilities are mind-blowing and slightly terrifying. Devil fruits instantly reincarnating at death is terrifying, but Vegapunk copying powers through science makes it even worse. But before I tell you about that, subscribe to our channel. Episode 1101, The Strongest Form of Humanity, the Seraphim's Abilities, shows us how Vegapunk basically hacked the genetic code behind devil fruit powers and broke the entire system by figuring out how to copy abilities without killing anyone, which is honestly both incredible and terrifying. For years, we've been told that devil fruits are these mysterious, one-of-a-kind powers that can't be replicated or shared. But Vegapunk has been quietly working in his lab, discovering something called lineage factors, which is basically the DNA blueprint for everything about a person, including their devil fruit abilities. While everyone else was still scratching their heads about how these fruits worked, this guy was reverse engineering them at the genetic level, like some mad scientist. The whole egghead situation becomes the perfect demonstration of his research. The Seraphim are fighting CP0 agents, and everyone gets front row seats to see these artificial humans using copied devil fruit powers in real time. Franky's group is watching the battle when they notice something that should be completely impossible. S-Shark is using Senor Pink's swim powers, even though Senor Pink is still alive and rotting in Impel Down. This breaks one of the most basic rules we know about devil fruits. You can't have two people with the same power at the same time, period. That's been carved in stone since day one of this series. But here's S-Shark swimming through solid ground like it's water, using the exact same Sui Sui no Mi abilities that should belong exclusively to Senor Pink. Then Vegapunk drops this bombshell explanation that flips everything on its head. He casually mentions that he figured out how to replicate Paramecia devil fruit powers using blood transfusions and genetic manipulation. He doesn't need to kill the original user or steal their fruit, he can literally copy their genetic information and give it to someone else. S-Bear has Kuma's paw powers, S-Snake has Hancock's love abilities, and they're all walking around using these copied powers like it's Tuesday. My first reaction was, wait, what? This completely destroys the rarity and uniqueness that made devil fruit special in the first place. If you can just copy powers through a blood sample, then what's stopping the world government from creating armies of rubber soldiers or fleets of barrier-protected ships? The implications are nuts. But here's where Vegapunk shows he's not completely godlike. He admits he still can't replicate awakened abilities. The copied powers work perfectly at their base level, but they're stuck there without the enhanced capabilities that come from awakening. That's actually a huge limitation that probably saves the world from complete chaos, but I bet most people watching missed that detail. This revelation changes everything about devil fruit research and what's possible in this world. If Vegapunk can copy Paramecia abilities through blood samples, then theoretically any Paramecia power could be mass-produced. Imagine facing an entire Marine battalion where every soldier has Luffy's stretching abilities or Bartolomeo's barriers. The strategic possibilities are mind-blowing and honestly, pretty scary. The science behind lineage factors also explains why the Seraphim are such monsters. They're genetically engineered super soldiers, combining the best physical traits of their templates with perfectly replicated supernatural powers. That combination probably makes them stronger than their original counterparts, which is a disturbing thought. What really gets me thinking is how this changes our understanding of what devil fruits actually are. If Vegapunk can copy these abilities through blood transfusion, then the powers must be encoded in the user's DNA somehow. The fruits don't just grant temporary abilities, they permanently rewrite your genetic structure in ways that can be studied, copied, and potentially improved. The fact that awakening can't be replicated is actually crucial. It suggests awakened abilities need something else, maybe experience or willpower or spiritual development that science can't duplicate yet. That gives awakened users a real advantage over any artificial copies, which feels right to me. This also raises some dark questions about how Vegapunk got the blood samples needed for replication. Getting Kuma's blood makes sense since he worked with the world government directly, but how did they get Hancock's blood for S-Snake? She's an enemy of the world government living on a hidden island. Or Senor Pink's blood while he's locked up in maximum security prison? The logistics suggest they've been secretly collecting genetic material from devil fruit users for years without anyone knowing. The implications for future wars are absolutely massive. If the world government can mass-produce devil fruit abilities, the balance of power could shift dramatically overnight. Pirates who thought their unique powers gave them an edge might suddenly face armies of soldiers with identical abilities. That levels the playing field in ways that completely change how conflicts work. But here's what bothers me most. Vegapunk's research proves that devil fruits aren't truly magical or supernatural. They work through measurable genetic mechanisms that can be understood and manipulated through science. That's amazing from a scientific perspective, but it also takes away some of the wonder and mystery that made these powers special in the first place. The Seraphim Project shows how far ahead Vegapunk is compared to every other scientist in the series. While Caesar was struggling to create barely functional artificial fruits with a pathetic 10% success rate, Vegapunk was already perfectly copying existing abilities and combining them with advanced technology. The gap between them is embarrassing for Caesar, honestly. This episode also makes me think about the ethics of copying someone's devil fruit abilities without permission. These powers are deeply personal to their users, often connected to their dreams and identity. Having those abilities replicated and used by artificial soldiers feels like stealing something fundamental about who they are as people. The blood transfusion method, specifically working for paramecia fruits, is interesting too. It suggests different devil fruit types might need different replication methods. Maybe Zoan abilities require different genetic material, or Logia powers can't be copied at all because elemental transformation goes beyond normal genetics. That could be why we haven't seen any Logia Seraphim yet. Looking at the bigger picture, Vegapunk's research represents this clash between old-world mystery and new-world science in one piece. He's taking powers that people have feared or worshipped for centuries and reducing them to genetic code that can be studied and replicated. That's simultaneously an incredible achievement and potentially world-ending dangerous technology. I also wonder what this means for natural devil fruit users going forward. Are their powers still special if they can be copied and potentially improved through science? Does having the original fruit still matter if artificial versions work just as well? These questions could define how the final conflicts play out. The timing of this revelation sets up what could be the ultimate showdown between natural and artificial power. Pirates with organically acquired devil fruit abilities are going to face off against scientifically enhanced soldiers with copied powers, and honestly, I'm not sure which side has the real advantage anymore. Natural users have awakening potential, but artificial users might have better base stats and no weaknesses. What really scares me is thinking about what happens if this technology spreads beyond the world government. If pirates or revolutionaries get their hands on lineage factor research, they could start copying powers too. The world could end up flooded with duplicate abilities, making rare and powerful devil fruits meaningless. This episode basically confirms that the final saga is going to be about science versus nature, artificial versus organic, and whether human innovation can truly replicate the mysterious forces that have shaped the One Piece world for centuries. Vegapunk's research might be the key to everything, or it might be what destroys the very thing that makes this world special. Vegapunk reducing devil fruits to science is shocking, but Buggy's story shows paramecia powers were strange and life-changing from the beginning. Episode 8, Who Will Win? Showdown between the true powers of the devil fruit, gives us our first real look at how devil fruits actually work through Buggy's backstory And honestly, it shows us that these powers are way weirder and more unpredictable than anyone expected. This is only episode 8, so we're still in the very beginning of One Piece, where most viewers had no clue what devil fruits were really about. We'd seen Luffy stretch and Alvida slip around, but nobody understood the science or rules behind these powers. Buggy becomes our first real teacher about devil fruit mechanics, and he's probably the worst possible person for that job because he got his powers through pure stupidity. The whole situation builds up through Buggy's flashback with Shanks on their old pirate crew. This backstory is pure gold because it shows us exactly how someone accidentally becomes a devil fruit user and what that means for their entire life. Buggy had this master plan to steal a devil fruit, sell it for massive profit, and use the money to start his own crew. He thought he was being clever by eating a fake fruit in front of everyone while keeping the real one hidden for later. But then Shanks shows up at the worst possible moment and startles Buggy, causing him to accidentally swallow the real Bara Bara no Mi. Just like that, Buggy's entire life plan gets destroyed in one stupid moment. He loses his ability to swim forever, the treasure map he stole gets blown away by wind, and his dreams of easy money disappear completely. Talk about bad timing. This moment teaches us something crucial about Paramecia devil fruits. They don't work the way you'd expect them to. Buggy's Bara Bara no Mi lets him split his body into pieces, which sounds awesome until you realize his feet always stay on the ground. He can float his torso, arms, and head around, but his legs are stuck to whatever surface they're touching. That's such a random limitation that makes no logical sense, but that's exactly how Paramecia powers work. They're weird and have arbitrary rules. The immediate impact of Buggy eating his devil fruit shows us how these powers completely change someone's life in ways they never planned for. Buggy went from being a potential treasure hunter to being permanently cursed by the sea. He had to spend 10 whole years building up wealth through regular piracy instead of his get-rich-quick scheme, and he's been bitter about Shanks ever since. Can you blame the guy? What makes this episode so important for understanding Paramecia fruits is how it shows the unpredictable nature of these abilities. Buggy's power seems really useful at first. He can avoid getting cut by swords, split apart to dodge attacks, and send his hands flying to grab things from a distance. But then you realize he can't actually fly his whole body. His pieces have limited range, and losing track of body parts becomes a real problem. I bet he's lost fingers in couch cushions more times than he'd like to admit. The fight between Luffy and Buggy demonstrates how different Paramecia users have to get creative with their abilities. Luffy uses his rubber body to bounce attacks back and stretch his limbs for long-range punches. Buggy splits apart to avoid damage and attacks from unexpected angles. Neither of them is using their powers in obvious ways. They're finding unique applications that probably took years to develop through trial and error. This episode also shows us that devil fruit users aren't automatically stronger than regular people, which is actually refreshing. Buggy has been using his powers for over a decade, but he still gets defeated by Luffy, who's only had his abilities for a few years. The fruit doesn't make you invincible. It just gives you tools that you need to learn how to use effectively. Some people are just better at adapting to their powers than others. The really interesting part about Buggy's explanation is how it reveals that devil fruits are rare enough that even experienced pirates treat them as incredibly valuable treasures. Buggy's original crew was excited about finding just one devil fruit, and Buggy thought selling it would make him rich enough to fund an entire pirate operation. That tells us these things are worth crazy amounts of money, probably more than most people see in their entire lives. But here's what bothers me about the whole situation. Buggy's crew knew he ate the devil fruit, but they didn't seem to care much about the implications. Nobody tested his abilities or helped him understand his new powers. They just accepted that he couldn't swim anymore and moved on. That suggests most people in the world don't really understand how devil fruits work either, which explains why there's so much mystery surrounding them. The episode also hints at something important about devil fruit users and their relationship with water. When Buggy accidentally eats his fruit, he immediately loses his ability to swim and can't recover his treasure map from the ocean. But the episode doesn't explain why this happens or what exactly the sea does to devil fruit users. We just know it makes them helpless in water, which seems like a harsh price to pay for supernatural abilities. Buggy's fighting style in this episode shows us how Paramecia users have to think differently about combat. Instead of relying on raw strength or speed, he uses misdirection and unexpected attacks. He splits his body to confuse opponents, sends limbs flying from weird angles, and tries to overwhelm enemies with unpredictable movements. That's a completely different approach from regular fighters who just punch and kick their way through problems. The Bara Bara Festival attack, where Buggy splits into dozens of pieces, demonstrates the upper limits of his abilities, but it also shows the weaknesses. When Nami ties up most of his body parts with rope, Buggy becomes much smaller and weaker. His power depends on having all his pieces available, so restraining or capturing parts of him severely limits what he can do. That's actually a pretty exploitable weakness if you think about it. This episode establishes that Paramecia Devil Fruits are fundamentally about altering the user's body, or giving them the ability to produce substances or manipulate their environment in specific ways. Luffy's rubber body and Buggy's split-apart ability are both body modifications that create new possibilities for combat and problem-solving. They're not shooting laser beams or turning into animals. They're changing how their bodies work in fundamental ways. The fact that both Luffy and Buggy have to get creative with seemingly simple powers shows us that Devil Fruit abilities are only as strong as the user's imagination and training. Having rubber powers doesn't automatically make you a great fighter. You need to figure out techniques like Gomu, no bazooka, or learn how to use your flexibility strategically. The fruit gives you potential, but you still have to work to unlock it. What I find fascinating is how this episode shows the psychological impact of getting Devil Fruit powers unexpectedly. Buggy never wanted to be a Devil Fruit user, MISA. He just wanted to make money. So when he accidentally gained these abilities, they felt more like a curse than a blessing. Compare that to Luffy, who seems to genuinely enjoy his rubber powers and finds them fun to use. The same type of ability can feel completely different depending on how you got it and what your original goals were. The interaction between Shanks and Buggy in the flashback also shows us that Devil Fruits were already mysterious and valuable even decades ago. Shanks seems to know what Devil Fruits are and understands their importance, but he doesn't act like he knows all the details about how they work. That suggests the mystery surrounding these powers has been around for a very long time. Looking at this episode now, knowing everything we've learned about Devil Fruits since then, it's amazing how much important information was packed into Buggy's backstory. This was establishing the foundation for how Devil Fruit powers work, why they're so valuable, and what it really means to become a Devil Fruit user in the One Piece world. Oda was laying groundwork that would pay off for decades. The episode also shows us that Devil Fruit users often have complicated relationships with their powers. Buggy resents his abilities because he got them by accident, and they ruined his original plans. That adds a layer of complexity to these powers that goes beyond just cool abilities for fighting. Sometimes, having supernatural powers isn't what you wanted, and you have to find ways to live with consequences you never chose. The visual comedy of Buggy's powers also establishes something important about Paramecia fruits. They can be simultaneously powerful and ridiculous. Buggy can survive being cut to pieces, which is incredibly useful in combat, but he also looks absolutely silly when his body parts are floating around separately. That balance between serious combat applications and comedic potential becomes a hallmark of many Paramecia abilities throughout the series. This episode basically sets the template for how Paramecia Devil Fruits work in One Piece. They give you specific abilities that seem simple on the surface, but have complex rules and limitations that users need to discover through experience. They're fundamental changes to how your body works that require you to relearn basic things like movement and combat. Buggy's accident showed how strange and limiting Paramecia powers could be, but Luffy's Gear Second proved those same body-altering fruits could push past every expectation. Episode 272. Luffy is in sight. Gather at the Courthouse Plaza shows us the moment when Luffy completely changes how we think about body-altering Paramecia Devil Fruits by introducing Gear Second, proving that these powers are way more flexible than anyone imagined. By this point in the series, we'd seen Luffy use his rubber powers in pretty basic ways, stretching his arms to punch people, bouncing attacks back, and inflating himself like a balloon. Most people thought they understood what the Gomu no Mi could do, but Luffy was about to blow everyone's minds by showing us we hadn't seen anything yet. The whole Enies Lobby raid creates the perfect setup for this breakthrough. Luffy and his crew just smashed through massive defenses, took down over 2,000 enemies, and finally reached the courthouse where Robin is being held prisoner. But then Luffy runs into Blueno, this CP9 agent who moves faster than you can blink and turns surfaces into doors. Suddenly, Luffy's normal rubber tricks aren't cutting it anymore. You can feel the tension building as Luffy realizes he's getting completely outclassed. Blueno is using this technique called Saru to move so fast that Luffy can barely see him coming, dodging attacks that should have connected easily. This is probably the first time since eating his devil fruit that Luffy's basic abilities just aren't enough to win a fight. Then Luffy reveals Gear Second, and everything changes. His body starts pumping blood at crazy speeds, steam pours off his skin, and he turns red from all the increased blood flow. He's literally using his rubber heart like a turbo engine, forcing blood through his system faster than any normal human could survive. It's both brilliant and completely insane. The immediate reaction is pure shock from everyone watching. Spandam is freaking out from his window. Blueno realizes he's not fighting the same person anymore, and fans watching probably had their jaws on the floor. This technique takes everything we thought we knew about rubber powers and tosses it out the window. What makes Gear Second so revolutionary is how it shows that body-altering paramecia fruits can enhance your entire physical system, not just give you one specific trick. Luffy figured out that his rubber organs could handle stress that would kill normal people, so he started treating his body like a machine he could overclock for better performance. The science behind this technique is actually pretty scary when you think about it. Luffy is forcing his heart to work several times harder than normal, jacking up his blood pressure to dangerous levels, and creating enough heat to make visible steam. Any regular person trying this would die instantly from heart failure. But Luffy's rubber body makes it possible. What I find most impressive is that Luffy developed this completely on his own. Nobody taught him how to do this, there's no Devil Fruit instruction manual, and he had to figure out the mechanics through trial and error. That takes some serious dedication, and probably a lot of painful mistakes during training. This episode shows us that body-altering paramecia abilities have hidden applications that aren't obvious at first glance. For years, people probably thought the Gomu Gomu no Mi was just about stretching and bouncing. But Luffy proved that rubber properties affect every part of his body in ways that can be exploited for massive power boosts. Gear Second also demonstrates the risk-reward nature of pushing paramecia abilities to their limits. While the technique gives Luffy incredible speed and strength, it's also burning through his life force at an accelerated rate. That steam coming off his body represents the cost of this power increase. This moment makes you reconsider every body-altering paramecia fruit we've seen. If Luffy can use his rubber heart to pump blood faster, what could other users do with their abilities? Could someone with iron skin make their bones denser? Could a spring-powered user store kinetic energy in their muscles for explosive attacks? The possibilities become endless. Most paramecia users are probably only scratching the surface of their fruit's potential. Luffy spent years using his powers for simple stretching before realizing he could manipulate his entire circulatory system. How many other users are missing similar breakthrough opportunities because they're thinking too small? Gear Second also shows that Devil Fruit mastery requires understanding your body at a level most people never attempt. Luffy had to learn how his rubber organs worked, figure out their limits, and develop techniques that worked with his altered physiology instead of fighting against it. What's really clever about this technique is how it maintains Luffy's limitations while expanding his options. He's still made of rubber, still can't swim, and still has the same basic weaknesses. Now he's using those same abilities in ways that create completely new combat possibilities. The episode establishes that body-altering paramecia fruits are fundamentally different from other Devil Fruit types because they change your baseline existence. Logia users can become elements when they want to, Zoan users can transform when needed, but paramecia users live with their altered bodies 24/7 and have to find ways to make those changes work for them constantly. This episode proves that the most powerful paramecia users aren't necessarily those with the strongest sounding fruits, but those who can think outside the box about how their abilities work. Luffy's rubber powers seemed pretty weak compared to Whitebeard's earthquakes or Crocodile's sand control, but Gear Second shows that any fruit can become incredibly powerful with the right mindset. The long-term impact is that viewers start examining every paramecia ability differently. Instead of taking these powers at face value, we start wondering about creative applications and how users could push beyond obvious limitations. Every simple-seeming fruit becomes potentially game-changing in the right hands. I also love how this technique shows Luffy's growth as a fighter. He went from someone who just threw punches really hard to someone who understands his body well enough to manipulate his cardiovascular system for combat advantage. That's character development that goes way deeper than just getting stronger. The episode also hints at the physical toll these advanced techniques take. Luffy doesn't just get tired after using Gear Second, his body shows signs of real strain. This establishes that pushing Devil Fruit abilities beyond their normal limits comes with serious consequences that users need to consider. The way other characters react to Gear Second shows that this kind of creative Devil Fruit application is rare even among experienced fighters. Most people stick to obvious uses for their powers, but breakthrough fighters like Luffy find ways to exploit every aspect of their abilities. The visual design of Gear Second is perfect too. The red skin and steam make it clear that something dramatic is happening to Luffy's body, while the increased speed and power show the practical benefits. It's a technique that looks as dangerous as it actually island. This moment also represents Luffy's willingness to sacrifice his own well-being for his friends. He's literally shortening his lifespan by using this technique, but he considers that an acceptable trade for the power needed to save Robin. That kind of determination probably plays a role in why he can push his abilities so far. The development of Gear Second also shows us how real combat experience drives Devil Fruit innovation. Luffy didn't create this technique while sitting around thinking about his powers. He developed it because he faced opponents strong enough to push him beyond his comfort zone. Aokiji completely outclassed him earlier, and that defeat motivated him to find new ways to use his abilities. What's fascinating is how Gear Second changes the entire dynamic of the Enies Lobby arc. Suddenly, Luffy goes from being outmatched by CP9 agents to being able to compete with their enhanced physical abilities. The technique doesn't just make him stronger, it puts him in a completely different category of fighter. The episode also establishes that body-altering paramecia fruits require users to have incredible body awareness and control. Luffy has to perfectly regulate his blood flow to maintain Gear Second without killing himself. That level of internal control suggests that mastering these abilities is as much about understanding physiology as it is about combat training. Gear Second basically opened the floodgates for creative Devil Fruit applications throughout the rest of the series. It showed that with enough imagination and understanding, even the most basic-seeming paramecia power can be transformed into something extraordinary. The only real limit is how creatively you can think about what your body can do. This technique also demonstrates how Devil Fruit abilities can be improved through training rather than just awakening. Luffy didn't need to reach some mystical awakened state to dramatically increase his power, Dine. He just needed to understand his abilities better and push them in new directions. The episode marks a turning point, where One Piece stopped being about simple Devil Fruit powers and started being about the endless potential for innovation and mastery. It proved that the real limitation is how imaginatively you approach using those abilities to achieve your goals. Luffy pushing his rubber body past human limits with Gear Second redefined body-altering paramecia, but Whitebeard's Marineford rampage proved environmental manipulation fruits could reshape the entire world. But before we continue the video, subscribe to our channel. Episode 485. Settling the Score. Whitebeard vs. The Blackbeard Pirates gives us the most insane display of environmental manipulation ever seen in One Piece, showing us exactly why the Gura Gura no Mi is called the Devil Fruit that can destroy the world. By this point in Marineford, we'd already seen Whitebeard do some crazy stuff with his earthquake powers, but honestly most of it felt restrained. He was holding back because he didn't want to accidentally kill his own crew or completely sink the island while Ace was still trapped there. But now Ace is dead, Whitebeard is dying from hundreds of wounds, and Blackbeard just showed up to finish him off. All bets are off. The whole setup is perfect for maximum destruction. Marineford is already in ruins from the war, thousands of Marines and pirates are scattered across the battlefield, and tensions couldn't get any higher. When Blackbeard emerges from the rubble with his crew, talking trash about how he's going to take over Whitebeard's territory, you know something catastrophic is about to happen. Whitebeard is absolutely furious, and rightfully so. This is the guy who betrayed his crew by murdering Thatch, which led to Ace chasing him down and eventually getting captured and executed. Blackbeard is basically responsible for destroying Whitebeard's family, and now he has the nerve to show up and gloat about it while Whitebeard is on his deathbed. Then Whitebeard unleashes hell, and I mean that literally. He starts using his Gura Gura no Mi at a level we've never seen before, and the entire island of Marineford begins falling apart. The ground cracks open like an egg, buildings collapse in every direction, and you can actually see the island tilting from the force of his earthquakes. The anime even shows steam coming off Whitebeard's body like he's burning his life force to push his powers beyond their normal limits. What makes this so terrifying is the scope of environmental damage happening in real time. We're not talking about a few cracks in the ground or some shaking buildings. Whitebeard is literally changing the geography of an entire island. The earthquakes he creates travel through the ground, through the air as shockwaves, and even affect the ocean around Marineford. Ships miles away start getting hit by waves and whirlpools. The reaction from everyone watching is pure panic. Marines who have been fighting all day suddenly realize they're standing on ground that could open up and swallow them at any moment. Even Fleet Admiral Sengoku looks genuinely scared, and this is a guy who's seen everything the pirate world has to offer. When Sengoku is worried about environmental damage, you know things are bad. I think what really drives home how dangerous this power is comes from understanding that Whitebeard is holding back even while dying. If he really wanted to, he could probably crack Marineford completely in half and send both pieces sinking into the ocean. The fact that anyone survives this battle is because Whitebeard chooses to limit his destruction, not because he lacks the power to cause more damage. The way his earthquakes work is honestly genius from a combat perspective. He can direct them to hit specific targets without destroying everything around them, create barriers by cracking the ground in strategic places, and throw entire groups of enemies off balance by tilting the battlefield. It's like having complete control over the stage where you're fighting. But here's what bothers me about powers like this. They're basically weapons of mass destruction disguised as personal abilities. Whitebeard could accidentally kill thousands of innocent people if he used his powers carelessly near populated areas. The fact that he has such good control and restraint is probably the only reason entire islands haven't been wiped off the map. The visual effects during this fight really show you how environmental manipulation affects everything in the area. You see the air itself seeming to crack and vibrate, buildings falling apart in slow motion, and the ground opening up like someone unzipped the earth. It feels like watching a real natural disaster happen. What's crazy is how this demonstrates the difference between environmental manipulation and other types of paramecia abilities. Body alteration fruits like Luffy's rubber powers mainly affect the user. Substance creation fruits have limited range, but environmental manipulation can threaten entire populations and change landscapes permanently. The interaction between Whitebeard's earthquakes and Blackbeard's darkness powers is really interesting too. Even though Blackbeard can absorb devil fruit abilities when he touches someone, he can't undo the environmental damage that's already been done. Once Whitebeard cracks the island's foundation, that damage is permanent, regardless of whether his powers get nullified. This episode also shows us something important about the psychology of environmental manipulation powers. Everyone fighting at Marineford has to deal with constant fear that the ground might give out beneath them or that the next earthquake could bury them alive. That kind of environmental threat messes with people's heads in ways that regular attacks can't match. I love how this fight shows that environmental manipulation, users can create lasting changes to the world even after they die. The cracks in Marineford don't magically heal when Whitebeard passes away. They become permanent scars on the landscape that will probably still be visible decades later. That's a level of environmental impact that most devil fruit users could never achieve. The episode hints at something genuinely terrifying about the upper limits of the Gura Gura no Mi. If Whitebeard can tilt an entire military fortress while dying from hundreds of wounds, what could someone do with this power at full strength? The idea that earthquakes could potentially sink entire continents feels like a real possibility. What really gets me is how Whitebeard uses his final moments to reshape the battlefield one last time. Even while dying, he's demonstrating that environmental manipulation users can potentially cause massive damage right up until their last breath. That makes them incredibly dangerous enemies who can't be safely ignored even when they're clearly defeated. The strategic implications of this power are mind-blowing when you think about them. Any war involving someone with environmental manipulation abilities becomes about more than just defeating armies, NEC. It's about protecting entire territories from potential destruction. One person with the right devil fruit could hold entire nations hostage by threatening their geographical stability. This fight proves that environmental manipulation paramecia fruits blur the line between personal combat abilities and natural disasters. When someone can create earthquakes, tsunamis, and ground fractures on command, they're essentially wielding the forces of nature as weapons. That puts them in a completely different category from most other devil fruit users. The episode also demonstrates how environmental damage creates chain reactions that spread far beyond the original attack. Whitebeard's earthquakes don't just affect the immediate area, they potentially trigger changes in ocean currents, weather patterns, and geological stability that could have consequences for months or years. What strikes me most about Whitebeard's powers is the level of responsibility they require. He could easily wipe out everyone at Marineford, but he chooses to focus his attacks on specific enemies while trying to minimize collateral damage. That kind of restraint shows incredible character, but it also highlights how dangerous these abilities could be in the wrong hands. The visual spectacle of watching someone literally crack reality apart creates some of the most memorable and impactful scenes in the entire series. There's something primal about seeing the Earth itself split open that goes beyond typical combat and creates genuine awe mixed with terror. This episode establishes environmental manipulation as probably the most strategically valuable type of devil fruit ability for large-scale conflicts. Individual combat powers are useful for personal fights, but the ability to reshape battlefields and threaten entire regions makes these fruits incredibly important for territorial disputes and wars. The long-term implications are staggering when you consider that this level of environmental destruction could affect global geography. If someone with Whitebeard's powers really cut loose without any restraint, they could potentially trigger environmental changes that affect multiple islands, disrupt shipping routes, and alter weather patterns across entire regions of the ocean. What makes this even more impressive is how Whitebeard maintains surgical precision with such devastating power. He can direct earthquakes to hit specific enemies while avoiding his own crew members who are scattered across the same battlefield. That requires an understanding of physics and environmental forces that goes way beyond just make earthquakes happen. The episode shows us that environmental manipulation powers represent the peak of what Paramecia devil fruits can achieve in terms of raw, destructive potential and tactical versatility. While other fruits might have unique properties or creative applications, none of them can match the sheer scope of devastation that abilities like the Gura Gura no Mi can unleash. Honestly, after watching this episode, it's amazing that the world of One Piece hasn't been completely reshaped by environmental manipulation users. The fact that islands still exist in their original forms suggests that either these powers are incredibly rare, or most users have enough sense not to go around cracking continents apart for fun. The episode basically proves that when people call the Gura Gura no Mi the devil fruit that can destroy the world, they're not using hyperbole or metaphor. They're making a literal statement about its destructive potential. Whitebeard could genuinely end civilization if he wanted to, which makes his restraint and moral character even more important to the stability of the entire world. Law's Opop no Mi isn't your typical Paramecia devil fruit, and episode 722, A Blade of Tenacity, the Gamma Knife Counterattack, proves exactly why this thing is absolutely terrifying. We're watching a guy literally rewrite the rules of biology in real time, and honestly, most people don't realize how broken this power actually island. The whole Dressrosa situation is falling apart around everyone. Doflamingo's birdcage is shrinking like some twisted death trap, slicing buildings into pieces while civilians run for their lives. The Marines are freaking out, citizens are losing hope, and everyone's counting on Luffy to somehow pull off a miracle. But here's the thing, Law's been playing chess while everyone else was playing checkers this entire time. What makes this episode so crucial is watching Law set up the most elaborate medical assassination attempt in anime history. The guy creates a room so massive it covers the entire palace plateau, but it's invisible because it's too big for anyone to see. That's not normal Paramecia behavior, MPUNA. Regular Paramecia fruits affect the user's body or create substances. Law's fruit creates invisible surgical domains that can span entire city blocks. That's special Paramecia territory, and it operates on completely different rules. The tension builds as Luffy desperately fights Doflamingo, throwing hockey-enhanced punches and getting launched around the rooftop. Everyone thinks Law is dead after taking those gunshots earlier. Doflamingo is mocking everyone, talking about how he'll rebuild another country after this one gets destroyed. The Shichibukai thinks he's won, thinks he's eliminated the biggest threat to his operation, but Law's been waiting for the perfect moment to strike back. Then, Law pulls off the most medically horrifying power move in One Piece history. He switches places with Luffy, using his massive room, and drives the Gamma Knife straight into Doflamingo's chest. Law specifically explains that this technique will destroy him from the inside out. We're talking about cellular-level destruction happening inside a living person while they're still conscious and aware of what's happening. The immediate aftermath shows exactly how special Paramecia powers work differently from regular ones. Doflamingo starts coughing up blood immediately because the Gamma Knife is dismantling his internal structure at the molecular level. His body is literally falling apart from the inside while looking completely normal on the outside. That's not something a regular Paramecia could do. Regular Paramecia fruits work with visible, physical changes. Law's fruit operates in dimensions most people can't even perceive. Here's where things get really interesting about special Paramecia classification. Most people think devil fruits fall into 3 neat categories, but Law's power breaks those rules completely. Regular Paramecia users like Luffy stretch their bodies or create substances like Mr. Three's wax. Logia users become elements and can reform their bodies. Zoan users transform into animals, but Law? He's creating spatial manipulation fields that let him perform impossible medical procedures on reality itself. The Gamma Knife technique reveals something most fans miss about how cellular manipulation actually works. Law is disrupting the fundamental processes that keep cells alive. Think about what happens when you damage someone's internal organs without touching their skin. You're essentially causing massive internal bleeding, organ failure, and tissue death while leaving no external evidence. That's not surgery anymore. That's biological warfare at the molecular level. What really bothers me is how casual Law is about using techniques that could kill someone in the most agonizing way possible. The Gamma Knife doesn't just damage organs, it causes them to fail slowly from the inside while the victim remains conscious. Doflamingo's lucky he's tough enough to survive it, because most people would die horribly from internal hemorrhaging and organ shutdown. Law's basically carrying around the medical equivalent of a nuclear weapon disguised as a sword. The episode also shows us something crucial about the cost of special paramecia powers. Law reveals that maintaining his massive room cost him years of his lifespan. That's a trade-off regular Devil Fruit users never face. When Luffy uses Gear Second, he might get tired, but he's not literally dying faster. Law's operating on a power level that requires genuine life force as payment. That tells us special paramecia fruits can push beyond normal limitations by consuming something precious from their users. This brings up an uncomfortable question about Law's medical ethics. The guy's a doctor who swore to save lives, but he's wielding powers that can kill people in ways that would make most serial killers jealous. He can switch people's personalities, remove their hearts without killing them, and now we know he can cause cellular breakdown from the inside. How does someone reconcile being a healer with having the most terrifying assassination tools in the world? The tactical applications of cellular manipulation are absolutely insane when you think about them seriously. Law could theoretically give someone cancer by damaging their DNA repair mechanisms. He could cause selective organ failure, destroy someone's immune system, or even manipulate their brain chemistry. The only reason he's not the most feared person in One Piece is because most people don't understand how terrifying medical knowledge becomes when combined with reality-warping powers. What's really clever about episode 722 is how it shows the psychological impact of the Gamma Knife on both Law and his target. Doflamingo, who's been confident and mocking throughout the entire arc, suddenly drops to his knees in genuine shock and pain. Meanwhile, Law finally gets his revenge against the man who killed Corazon, using a technique that represents everything he learned about medicine turned into a weapon of vengeance. The episode reveals another crucial detail about how Law survived Doflamingo's earlier attack. He switched himself with a fallen Don Quixote pirate on the level below, meaning he was manipulating multiple people's positions across different floors of the palace simultaneously. That kind of spatial awareness and control over his room suggests Law's powers operate on a scale most people can't even comprehend. He's managing a three-dimensional surgical field that spans multiple city blocks. This also explains why Law's been so strategic throughout the entire Dressrosa arc. He's operating as a supernatural surgeon who can manipulate the battlefield like a giant operating room. Every move he makes is calculated based on spatial positioning, timing, and understanding of human anatomy that goes way beyond normal combat thinking. The long-term implications of this power are absolutely insane when you really think about it. Law revealed he created that massive room at the cost of his own lifespan, which tells us that special paramecia fruits can push beyond normal human limitations by consuming the user's life force. That's a trade-off regular paramecia users never have to consider. When Luffy stretches, he doesn't lose years off his life. When Buggy splits apart, it doesn't cost him anything permanent. But Law's operating on a completely different power scale that requires genuine sacrifice. What's really controversial here is that Law's fruit basically makes him a living medical nightmare. The Gamma Knife technique shows he can selectively destroy internal organs, tissue, or cellular structures without leaving external wounds. He could theoretically give someone cancer, destroy their immune system, or cause organ failure without anyone knowing what happened. That's God-level medical knowledge combined with surgical precision that operates beyond normal physical laws. No wonder the world government was so interested in the Ope Ope no Mi's ultimate technique, immortality surgery. A fruit that can manipulate life at the cellular level could theoretically grant eternal life by constantly repairing cellular damage. But here's the twisted part. The same power that could make someone immortal can also kill them in the most horrific ways imaginable. Law's carrying around the power of life and death itself, disguised as medical treatment. The scariest part about all this is that Law is still learning how to use his powers. He's already performing impossible medical procedures and spatial manipulation that breaks the laws of physics. What happens when he fully masters cellular manipulation? Could he cure any disease? Could he enhance human abilities by modifying someone's DNA directly? The possibilities are both amazing and terrifying, and honestly, I'm not sure Law has fully grasped the monster he's carrying around inside that devil fruit. Whitebeard proved paramecia can break the world. But special paramecia turns that terror inward as Law's Op no Mi performs surgery on living bodies. Episode 727. A massive counterattack. Doflamingo's awakening. Completely changed how we understand devil fruit evolution, and honestly, it's probably the most game-changing power reveal in the entire series. Doflamingo just casually broke every rule we thought we knew about paramecia fruits by turning the entire battlefield into his weapon. The setup for this awakening reveal is absolutely perfect chaos. Luffy's been dominating with Gear 4, sending Doflamingo flying through multiple buildings while the citizens below cheer for this mysterious rubber man they don't even know. Law's watching from the flower field, warning that Luffy's overusing his haki, which sets up the time pressure that makes this whole situation so desperate. Meanwhile, the birdcage keeps shrinking, slicing through everything except the Smile Factory because of its sea stone construction, and people are starting to lose hope as they realize they can't outrun death itself. Watching this episode, you can feel how desperate everything's become. People are literally running for their lives while Luffy and Doflamingo duke it out on the rooftops. There's this mother looking for her lost son, people trapped under rubble, and medics trying to evacuate hospitals while nobody stops to help because everyone's too scared. The whole island feels like it's about to collapse under the pressure of that shrinking cage. The tension builds as Luffy hovers in midair, knowing he needs to finish this fight quickly before Gear 4 runs out. Doflamingo's lying on the ground, probably calculating his next move, while pondering how this rubber kid managed to overpower him so completely. Everyone watching thinks the fight's basically over. Doflamingo took a massive beating, and Luffy's got this new transformation that seems unstoppable. But that's exactly when Oda pulls the rug out from under everyone. Then, Doflamingo drops the biggest devil fruit bombshell since Logia types were first introduced. Luffy retracts both fists for what should be the finishing blow, but suddenly, two massive waves of string erupt from the ground to block the attack. Not from Doflamingo's body, from the ground itself. The Shichibukai reveals his devil fruit has awakened, allowing him to transform his surroundings into string, and suddenly the entire battlefield becomes his body. This moment genuinely shocked me when I first watched it. Like, we've seen Doflamingo do crazy things with string before, but this was different. The guy literally turned concrete and stone into string. That shouldn't be possible according to everything we knew about paramecia fruits. Regular paramecia users work with their own bodies or create stuff from nothing. They don't just transform random objects into their element. The immediate impact is absolutely terrifying to watch. Doflamingo starts turning more and more buildings into string, creating this nightmarish environment where the architecture itself becomes a weapon. Luffy's completely overwhelmed by constant barrages of string attacks coming from every direction. Even Luffy comments that this makes Doflamingo's fruit look nothing like a paramecia anymore, which is probably the most important line in the entire episode, because it shows even the main character realizes the rules just changed completely. What really gets me is how unfair this awakening thing Island Luffy's been training his entire life finally gets this incredible Gear 4 transformation, and then Doflamingo just says, "Actually, I can turn the entire city into my weapon now." It's like playing a video game where your opponent suddenly gets access to cheat codes. The power gap goes from manageable to absolutely insane in seconds. The episode shows us something really important about how awakening actually works. Doflamingo has to touch the ground to turn it into string, and you can see it briefly becoming string under his feet before changing back. This means awakening takes concentration and physical contact to maintain. But even with those limitations, the advantage is enormous. Think about what this means for every other paramecia user we've ever seen. Luffy could potentially turn entire buildings into rubber. Mr. 3 could transform whole city blocks into wax. Buggy could make everything around him capable of splitting apart. The potential is absolutely insane, and it makes me wonder why more people don't achieve awakening if it's this powerful. Here's what bothers me though. If awakening is this game-changing, why do so few people seem to have it? Either it's incredibly difficult to achieve, or there are serious downsides that make it dangerous to use. Looking at Doflamingo during this fight, you can tell the awakening is taking a toll on him. He's breathing harder, moving more slowly, and still dealing with internal damage from Law's Gamma Knife. The timing of King Riku's speech during all this chaos is perfect. He's trying to give people hope by telling them only Doflamingo is left standing. But what he doesn't realize is that Doflamingo just became way more dangerous than before. The hope he's spreading might be premature because awakening essentially reset the entire power dynamic of the fight. This awakening reveal fundamentally changes how devil fruits work in the One Piece world, and the long-term implications are absolutely insane. Regular Paramecia users affect their own bodies or create substances. Luffy stretches, Mr. 3 makes wax, Buggy splits apart. But awakened Paramecia users can impose their power onto the environment around them. That means every building, every street, every piece of the battlefield becomes an extension of the Devil Fruit user's body. It's basically environmental possession on a massive scale. What makes this awakening reveal so brilliant is how it reframes every previous Paramecia battle we've ever seen. All those fights where users seemed limited by their own body or by creating finite amounts of their substance, they were all fighting with training wheels on. Awakened Paramecia users can essentially turn entire cities into their Devil Fruit power, which makes them exponentially more dangerous than anyone realized. I love how Luffy reacts to this whole situation. Instead of being intimidated, he's genuinely confused and amazed. His comment about the fruit not looking like a Paramecia anymore shows he's trying to understand what's happening while simultaneously getting overwhelmed by string attacks from every angle. It's such a Luffy response, more curious than scared, even when facing something completely new and dangerous. The tactical applications of awakened Paramecia powers are absolutely broken when you think about them seriously. Doflamingo can turn any building into a string construct, create unlimited amounts of string from environmental sources, and launch attacks from angles that should be impossible. He's essentially fighting with infinite ammunition and home field advantage no matter where the battle takes place. That's ascending to a completely different tier of combat capability. What's really scary is thinking about other Paramecia users reaching awakening. Could an awakened Gomu Gomu no Mi user turn entire buildings into rubber? Could someone with the Supa Supa no Mi transform city blocks into bladed weapons? The possibilities are terrifying because it means any awakened Paramecia user could theoretically reshape entire battlefields to match their Devil Fruit properties. Here's my controversial take. I think Awakening reveals a fundamental flaw in how Devil Fruits have been portrayed up until this point. If environmental transformation is possible for awakened users, then every previous Devil Fruit battle feels like watching children play with toys they don't understand. The power gap between awakened and non-awakened users is so massive that it makes most of the series' early fights look like amateur hour. The episode reveals another crucial detail about awakening limitations through Doflamingo's fighting style. Even with his awakened powers, he's still showing signs of the damage from Law's Gamma Knife. His movements are more labored, he's breathing heavily, and you can tell maintaining this level of environmental transformation is taking a massive toll on his body. This suggests that awakening might be incredibly powerful, but it comes with serious physical costs that could be fatal if overused. Looking at how awakening changes the battlefield dynamics, I think this reveals something crucial about high-level Devil Fruit combat that we never understood before. The environment itself becomes part of the Devil Fruit user's body, which means location advantages disappear completely. An awakened user can essentially make any battlefield their home turf by transforming it to match their powers. That's a strategic advantage that goes way beyond just having stronger attacks. What really excites me about this awakening concept is how it reframes the potential of every Devil Fruit we've ever seen. Suddenly, every Paramecia user has the theoretical potential to become an environmental manipulator on a massive scale. That means characters we thought had reached their power ceiling might actually be nowhere near their true potential. The implications for future battles are absolutely insane. Honestly, watching Doflamingo's awakening made me realize how much we still don't know about Devil Fruits. This guy just casually revealed that there's an entire level of mastery most users never reach, and it completely changes the rules of engagement. It makes me wonder what other secrets are hiding in the Devil Fruit system that we haven't discovered yet. Doflamingo's awakening turned a city into string and shattered the rules, but Chopper's Rumble Ball shows Zoan's break them harder by rewriting biology into 7 weaponized forms. And hey, if you're enjoying the video so far, subscribe to our channel. Episode 88. Zoan Type Devil's Fruit. Chopper's 7-level transformation is the episode that finally shows us what Zoan fruits can really do, and honestly, most people completely underestimate how broken these animal powers actually are. Chopper doesn't just turn into a human, he's got 7 completely different forms thanks to his Rumble Ball, and each one proves that animal Devil Fruits are way more complex than anyone realized. We're right in the middle of the Drum Island chaos when this happens. Luffy just planted Hiraluk's flag like he's claiming territory, and now he's launching himself at Wapol and that weird chess guy Chess Marimo. Meanwhile, Dalton's still unconscious from his earlier beatdown, and the doctors are scrambling to save him. The whole island feels like it's about to explode from all the tension. The setup is perfect, because Luffy basically asks Chopper, "Hey, can you handle this guy alone?" and Chopper's like, yeah, piece of cake. Then he pops this little yellow ball in his mouth, the Rumble Ball, like he's taking vitamins before a workout. Chess Marimo's standing there with his bows and flaming arrows, probably thinking he's about to roast some random reindeer. He has no clue what's coming. Then Chopper completely breaks every rule we thought we knew about Zoan transformations. Regular Zoan users get 3 forms: human, animal, and that weird hybrid thing in between. But Chopper's got 7 different forms, and each one is designed for specific situations. His heavy point makes his hooves strong enough to smash rocks. His brain point turns him into some kind of tactical genius who can spot weak points instantly. The guy basically turned his devil fruit into a complete combat system. Watching Chess Marimo try to keep up is painful. The dude starts shooting flaming arrows, and Chopper dodges them like they're moving in slow motion. Then, Chess Marimo pulls out 4 wooden hammers, and Chopper just breaks 2 of them with his hooves like they're made of paper. The chess guy switches to axes, still getting dodged, and then Chopper uses his enhanced brain to find his weak spot and lands one decisive punch. Fight over! This whole transformation showcase changes everything we know about how Zoan fruits work. Most Zoan users are probably wasting their devil fruit by sticking to the basic 3-form system. Chopper proved that with the right scientific approach, you can create specialized transformations for any combat situation you need. That's both amazing and terrifying when you think about what other Zoan users could accomplish. Here's what really gets me. Chopper created these extra forms through medical research. The guy approached his devil fruit like a science problem and solved it with chemistry. While other Zoan users are just transforming randomly, Chopper's out here conducting experiments and developing enhancement drugs. That level of systematic thinking is way ahead of most devil fruit users. The Rumble Ball itself is probably the most underrated invention in One Piece. Think about it. If Chopper can unlock hidden transformation points with a simple drug, what could other scientifically minded devil fruit users create? Could someone enhance Logia transformations? Could Paramecia users unlock new applications of their powers? The potential is insane. What bothers me is how this makes other Zoan users look completely amateur. If a teenage reindeer can figure out 7 different combat forms, why haven't experienced fighters discovered similar techniques? Either most Zoan users are lazy, or there are serious downsides to Rumble Ball enhancement that we don't see in this episode. I'm betting there are major risks involved. Each of Chopper's forms represents different aspects of what makes animals powerful in nature. Heavy Point uses the raw strength of large mammals. Brain Point taps into the intelligence that separates advanced animals from simple ones. His regular reindeer form keeps the speed and agility that prey animals need to survive. It's like he's accessing millions of years of evolution in one devil fruit. The tactical flexibility this gives Chopper is incredible. Unlike Paramecia users, who have to get creative with one power, or Logia users, who rely on elemental advantages, Chopper can completely change his fighting style to counter whatever his opponent throws at him. That adaptability makes Zoan fruits potentially the most versatile devil fruit type if used correctly. Luffy's reaction to all this is perfect. He's watching this little reindeer pull off impossible combat moves with scientific precision, and you can see he's genuinely amazed. Even someone as experienced with devil fruits as Luffy can be surprised by creative applications of powers he thought he understood. Chopper's fighting with a completely different philosophy. The timing of this reveal is brilliant because it shows Chopper is bringing revolutionary devil fruit research that could enhance everyone's abilities. His medical knowledge, combined with enhancement techniques, makes him incredibly valuable beyond just healing injuries. What really impresses me about Chopper's system is how each transformation serves a specific tactical purpose rather than just being bigger or stronger versions of his base forms. Heavy Point is optimized for breaking through defenses. Brain Point is designed for analyzing opponents and developing counter strategies. The specialization shows genuine understanding of combat theory. This episode reveals something crucial about the relationship between intelligence and devil fruit mastery. Chopper didn't accidentally discover his 7-form system, he developed it through careful research and experimentation. This suggests the most powerful devil fruit users aren't necessarily those with the rarest fruits, but those who understand their powers well enough to push beyond normal limitations. Here's my controversial take. Chopper's approach to devil fruit enhancement might be more important than any of the rare mythical Zoans we see later in the series. While other characters chase powerful fruits or focus on raw strength, Chopper treated his devil fruit like a scientific instrument that could be improved through systematic research. That methodology could revolutionize how everyone uses their powers. The fact that Chopper can break solid rock with his hooves in Heavy Point shows these transformations aren't just cosmetic changes, they're fundamental alterations to his physical capabilities. The Rumble Ball is somehow unlocking biological potential that normally stays dormant in Zoan users. The implications for understanding how animal devil fruits affect the human body are huge. Looking at how this sets up Chopper's future role, it's clear his scientific approach could benefit the entire crew. If he can create drugs that unlock hidden transformation points in Zoan fruits, what could he develop for other devil fruit types? Could he enhance Luffy's rubber properties? Could he find ways to boost Zoro's physical capabilities? The series never fully explores this potential, but it's fascinating to consider. The episode also demonstrates that devil fruit mastery is about understanding the science behind your powers. Chopper succeeded because he combined medical knowledge with devil fruit research. Other users might be limiting themselves by approaching their powers purely through combat training instead of scientific study. What's really scary is thinking about what Chopper could develop as he gets older and more experienced. He's already created 7 specialized combat forms as a teenager. Give him a few more years of research, and he could probably unlock transformation points that make his current forms look basic. The guy's essentially carrying around a biological laboratory disguised as a devil fruit. The contrast between Chopper's scientific method and Chess Marimo's brute force approach perfectly illustrates why intelligence matters more than raw power in devil fruit battles. Chess Marimo had more weapons and probably more combat experience, but Chopper's systematic approach to transformation gave him every advantage he needed to win decisively. The way Chopper explains his drug while fighting shows how confident he is in his research. Most devil fruit users can't explain how their powers work beyond basic descriptions, but Chopper understands the biochemistry behind his transformations. That level of knowledge gives him precise control over his abilities that other Zoan users probably lack completely. What I find fascinating is how Chopper's transformations seem to bypass the normal limitations of Zoan fruits. Regular Zoan users have to choose between human intelligence with weak physical abilities, animal strength with limited reasoning, or hybrid forms that compromise both. Chopper's forms specialize in specific areas without the usual trade-offs. His brain point maintains intelligence, while his heavy point maximizes physical power. The episode also hints at the darker implications of Rumble Ball technology. If Chopper can chemically unlock hidden transformation points, then what happens if someone develops a military-grade version of his drug? Could governments mass-produce enhanced Zoan soldiers? The potential for weaponizing Chopper's research is terrifying, and I doubt he's considered the bigger picture consequences. Another thing that strikes me is how Chopper's forms reflect different survival strategies from the animal kingdom. Heavy Point represents the tank strategy, become too tough to kill. Brain Point uses the outsmart your predators approach. His speed forms probably represent the run away fast enough strategy. He's essentially created a devil fruit that can adapt to any survival scenario. The timing of this transformation reveal also shows how unprepared most people are for enhanced Zoan users. Chess Marimo probably had experience fighting regular Zoan transformations, but Chopper's specialized forms completely threw off his combat predictions. That suggests enhanced devil fruit users have a massive advantage against opponents who expect standard power applications. What really bothers me is how casually Chopper uses his Rumble Ball. The guy just pops it like candy, without any apparent concern about side effects or long-term consequences. Either he's incredibly confident in his research, or he's taking risks that could backfire spectacularly. Given that this is experimental drug enhancement, I'd expect more caution from someone with medical training. The broader implications for devil fruit classification are huge too. If Chopper can access 7 forms instead of 3, does that make him a different type of Zoan user? Are there other enhanced devil fruit categories we haven't discovered yet? His transformations challenge the entire system we use to understand devil fruit types and limitations. Chopper's 7-form Rumble Ball proves Zoans can be engineered, but now Ancient Zoan might shows the raw prehistoric dominance of Ulti in Page 1, Episode 990. Thunder Bagua, Here Comes Kaido's Son, is where we finally get to see what makes Ancient Zoan devil fruits so much scarier than regular animal transformations. Ulti and Page 1 are becoming prehistoric monsters that can actually fight Luffy on equal terms, and that's way more impressive than most people give them credit for. The whole situation is building up perfectly inside Kaido's castle. There's this mystery person in a mask running around looking for someone, while complete chaos is breaking out everywhere. Kids beating up beast pirates in one room, everyone else is scattered around fighting, and you can feel the tension building. Meanwhile, Ulti is having another one of her crazy fits while checking on Page 1. remembering how she literally rode him down the stairs like he was some kind of sled. When Luffy accidentally runs into them, you can immediately tell these two are different from other Zoan users we've seen. Ulti has this wild, dangerous energy that makes her scary, even when she's not transformed. Page 1 seems way more calm and controlled, but there's something creepy about how he just stands there while his sister goes absolutely nuts around him. Then the real show starts, and we get to see what ancient Zoan power actually looks like in action. Luffy and Ulti begin by headbutting each other, which already shows how tough she is since most people can't match Luffy's strength like that. But when she transforms into her Pachycephalosaurus hybrid form, everything changes completely. Her skull becomes this massive battering ram, while Page 1 shifts into his full Spinosaurus form, and suddenly Luffy's fighting two dinosaurs in a tiny room. The immediate impact of seeing these ancient transformations is absolutely shocking. Page 1 as a full Spinosaurus is huge, probably bigger than most houses, with jaws that could bite through steel and claws designed for ripping apart massive prey. Ulti in her hybrid form keeps her human intelligence while gaining the thick skull and raw power of a creature built for ramming into things. When she grabs Luffy and slams him into the floor, you realize these are living weapons. What makes ancient Zoans so much better than regular animal fruits is the incredible toughness and raw power they give you. Regular Zoan users get stronger and more durable, but ancient Zoan users become nearly impossible to hurt. Ulti takes multiple hits from Luffy and keeps fighting like nothing happened. Page 1 gets smashed with a Haki-powered Gear Third Punch and still has enough energy left to keep going. These dinosaur forms are built to survive in a world where everything was trying to eat everything else. This episode shows us something really important about how ancient Zoan users fight. They don't rely on being fast or using fancy techniques like regular animal users might. They just use overwhelming force and incredible durability to outlast whoever they're fighting. Ulti's entire strategy is basically headbutt everything until it stops moving. And it actually works because her dinosaur skull is thick enough to crack rocks. Here's what really gets me about ancient Zoan users. They represent a completely different way of thinking about survival. Regular animals evolved to be quick, smart, or good at specific things. But dinosaurs evolved to be the biggest, strongest, and toughest creatures around because that was the only way to survive back then. That prehistoric mindset carries over into their devil fruit forms, making them incredibly dangerous to fight. The tactical advantages these transformations give you become super obvious when you watch Ulti and Page 1 work together. She can use her hybrid form to keep her human brain while getting dinosaur toughness, letting her make smart decisions while being strong enough to tank massive damage. Page 1's full beast form trades some movement speed for incredible attack power and this intimidation factor that makes most enemies think twice about fighting him. What's crazy about this episode is how it shows Luffy actually having trouble with these ancient Zoan users. By this point, Luffy's fought admirals, warlords, and other super powerful people, but Ulti and Page 1 push him to his limits in ways that seem almost unfair. That tells us something really important about how ancient Zoans compare to other devil fruit types. They might not be more versatile, but they're definitely more overwhelming in straight fights. The toughness factor is absolutely insane when you think about it. Ulti transforms into her full beast form after taking serious damage and immediately becomes even harder to hurt. Her Pachycephalosaurus form has a skull that's literally designed for ramming into other massive creatures, which means her headbutts could probably knock down buildings. The fact that she can make this even stronger with armament haki is genuinely terrifying. When Ulti gets ready to use her Ul Meteor technique, you can see the real potential of what ancient Zoan awakening might look like. She's perfecting her dinosaur form, turning her natural headbutting instinct into a devastating finishing move. That level of specialization shows how ancient Zoan users can develop attacks that regular animal users could never pull off because they don't have the raw physical foundation to build on. Page 1's Spinosaurus form shows us something else about ancient Zoans that most people miss. Spinosaurus were semi-aquatic predators, which means his transformation gives him advantages both on land and in water. He could probably dominate underwater battles too. That versatility, combined with incredible power, makes ancient Zoans way more dangerous than people realize. The episode also shows the psychological impact of facing these users. When Luffy sees these massive dinosaur forms, he immediately knows he's in serious trouble and needs to fight at full strength. That's genuine recognition that these opponents are on a completely different level from regular animal users he's faced before. What really bugs me is how casual Ulti and Page 1 are about using their ancient Zoan powers. They transform like it's nothing special, but they're literally becoming prehistoric killing machines designed by millions of years of evolution to be perfect predators. The fact that they can control these forms so easily means they've mastered their devil fruits to a degree that most regular animal users never reach. The size difference between ancient and regular animal transformations is absolutely massive. Page 1's full Spinosaurus form is probably 3 times bigger than most regular animal forms, and that size comes with matching increases in strength and durability. Ulti's Pachycephalosaurus form might be smaller than Page 1's, but it's built like a living battering ram with legs, designed specifically for delivering crushing impact attacks. Here's my controversial opinion. Ancient Zoan users might actually be more dangerous than most Logia users in direct fights. Logia users can become intangible, but Ancient Zoan users can take hits that would destroy most other Devil Fruit users and keep fighting. They represent a different philosophy of power, ESA. Instead of avoiding damage, they absorb it and dish out even more in return. The way these transformations affect their surroundings is incredible too. Page 1's massive size lets him use buildings and furniture as weapons just by moving around. Ulti's headbutts create holes in solid stone floors. They're reshaping the entire battlefield through pure physical presence. What's really scary about Ancient Zoans is thinking about what they could do with more training and experience. Ulti and Page 1 are relatively young members of the Tobiropo, but they're already this powerful. Imagine what someone like Kaido could do with an Ancient Zoan if he had one. The combination of his natural strength and prehistoric durability would be completely unstoppable. The episode shows some important weaknesses too. Despite their incredible power and toughness, they're still vulnerable to opponents who can match their raw strength and add better technique. Luffy manages to grab Ulti's horns and slam her down, showing that Ancient Zoan users can be outmaneuvered if you're creative and strong enough. But honestly, the most impressive thing about this showcase is how it proves that Devil Fruit power is about how well the user and their fruit work together. Ulti's aggressive, headstrong personality perfectly matches her head-butting dinosaur form. Page 1's more controlled, calculated nature works perfectly with the patient predator instincts of a Spinosaurus. They're living their devil fruits. The timing of Yamato showing up at the end is perfect because it demonstrates that even Ancient Zoan users have limits. Ulti's about to unleash her most powerful attack when she gets completely overwhelmed by someone even stronger. But the fact that it takes Yamato's Thunder Bagua technique to stop her just proves how incredibly tough Ancient Zoan users really are. What I love about Ancient Zoans is how they make battles feel more primal and intense. There's something genuinely scary about fighting a dinosaur, even in a world full of crazy devil fruit powers. These creatures ruled the earth for millions of years, and that prehistoric dominance translates perfectly into combat advantages that regular animals just can't match. The raw intimidation factor of these transformations can't be understated either. When Page 1 becomes a full Spinosaurus, he's becoming a creature that most people have only seen in nightmares or movies. That psychological advantage probably wins fights before they even really begin. Looking at this episode, Ancient Zoans represent a completely different approach to Devil Fruit mastery. Instead of developing complex techniques or creative applications, they focus on perfecting the art of overwhelming force. That might seem simple, but when you're fighting prehistoric monsters with nearly indestructible bodies and devastating natural weapons, simple becomes terrifyingly effective. Sometimes, the best strategy is just being too tough to kill and too strong to stop. Ancient Zoans overwhelm with prehistoric durability and brute force, but mythical Zoan legends shows Marco's Phoenix rewriting the rules with supernatural regeneration and flight. Episode 463. Burn Everything to Ash. Admiral Akainu's power gives us our first real look at what makes mythical Zoan devil fruits the absolute pinnacle of Zoan evolution. And Marco's Phoenix form proves why these legendary powers are considered the rarest and most broken fruits in the entire One Piece world. The Marineford War is reaching its most intense moments when this episode takes place. Whitebeard and his crew are facing off against the entire Marine force, including all 3 admirals and the 7 warlords. The stakes couldn't be higher. Ace's life hangs in the balance, and everyone knows this battle will determine the future of piracy itself. Tensions are through the roof as both sides unleash their most powerful fighters and abilities. The build-up to Marco's mythical Zoan showcase is absolutely perfect. Mihawk launches his massive shockwave attack toward Whitebeard, which gets blocked by Jozu's diamond powers. The Whitebeard pirates charge forward while Marines fire their cannons in response. Then Kizaru decides to end things quickly by going straight for Whitebeard himself, using his light speed to appear right in front of the Emperor and unleashing his Yasakani no Magatama attack. That's when Marco makes his move, and we get to see exactly why mythical Zoan fruits are considered legendary. He intercepts Kizaru's light-based attack in his phoenix form, and the most shocking thing happens. Of that, he takes no visible damage whatsoever. When the Marines and even Kizaru stare in amazement, Marco casually explains that he did take damage, but his phoenix regeneration makes it irrelevant. Then he kicks Kizaru and sends the Admiral flying, proving that mythical Zoans can go toe-to-toe with the strongest fighters in the world. The immediate impact of seeing Marco's phoenix abilities is absolutely mind-blowing. His regeneration is complete negation of damage through mystical blue flames that restore his body instantly. When he takes Kizaru's attack, you can actually see the flames working to repair any harm done. This is supernatural restoration that operates on completely different principles from anything we've seen before. The long-term implications of Marco's Phoenix demonstration change everything we understand about Devil Fruit hierarchy and power scaling. Mythical Zoans don't just give you animal transformations with enhanced abilities, they grant you access to legendary powers that exist beyond the normal rules of biology and physics. Marco's Phoenix form combines the regenerative properties of mythical creatures with flight capabilities and mystical flames that seem to operate on pure magic rather than natural laws. What makes Marco's Phoenix so incredible is the complete package of abilities he gets. He can fly at incredible speeds, regenerate from almost any damage, and his blue flames seem to have protective properties that go way beyond normal fire. Regular Zoan users get stronger and tougher when they transform, but Marco gets access to abilities that mythological creatures are famous for in legends and stories. The episode shows us something crucial about how mythical Zoan regeneration actually works. When Marco takes damage, his blue flames immediately start repairing the harm. But there's clearly some kind of cost or limitation involved, since he mentions that he did get hurt. This suggests that even mythical Zoan powers have boundaries, but those boundaries are so high that they're practically irrelevant in most fights. Here's what really gets me about Marco's Phoenix form. It represents the perfect fusion of offense, defense, and mobility that most Devil Fruit users can only dream of. He can engage enemies at range with flight, tank incredible damage with regeneration, and his flames seem to have both offensive and defensive capabilities. Regular Zoan users have to choose between human intelligence with weak physical stats, animal strength with limited reasoning, or hybrid forms that compromise both. Marco gets the best of everything with no apparent downsides. The tactical advantages of mythical Zoan transformation become obvious when you watch Marco fight. He can take risks that would be suicidal for other fighters, because his regeneration makes most damage temporary. He can engage multiple opponents simultaneously because his flight gives him three-dimensional movement options. His flames provide both attack and defense capabilities that regular animal users could never match. What's controversial about Marco's Phoenix abilities is how they seem to break the established rules of Devil Fruit classification. His regeneration works more like Logia intangibility, his flames behave like Paramecia substance creation, but he's technically a Zoan user. Mythical Zoans blur the lines between all three Devil Fruit types, which makes them incredibly versatile in ways that pure Logia or Paramecia users can't match. The rarity factor of mythical Zoans becomes crystal clear when you see what Marco can do. These fruits are so rare because they grant access to creatures that exist only in myths and legends. While regular Zoan users transform into animals that actually existed, mythical Zoan users become creatures that humans could only imagine in their wildest dreams. That fundamental difference in source material makes these fruits exponentially more powerful and valuable. Marco's Phoenix form also demonstrates why mythical Zoan users often become incredibly important figures in the One Piece world. When you can regenerate from almost any damage and fly at incredible speeds, you naturally become someone that major powers want as an ally or fear as an enemy. The combination of practical immortality and incredible mobility makes mythical Zoan users game-changing assets in any conflict. The episode reveals something important about mythical Zoan combat philosophy too. Marco doesn't fight like a regular animal user who relies on natural instincts and enhanced physical abilities. He fights like someone wielding legendary powers that operate on mystical principles. His combat style incorporates elements that no real animal could ever use because he's not limited by biological reality. What really impresses me about Marco's demonstration is how effortlessly he handles Kizaru's attack. Admiral-level opponents represent the absolute peak of combat ability in the One Piece world, but Marco treats Kizaru's lightspeed assault like it's a minor inconvenience. That level of casual power display shows just how broken mythical Zoan abilities really are when mastered properly. The psychological impact of facing a mythical Zoan user like Marco must be absolutely devastating for opponents. How do you strategize against someone who can regenerate from almost any damage you deal? How do you corner someone who can fly at incredible speeds? How do you prepare for abilities that operate on mythical rather than natural principles? The answer is probably that you can't, which explains why these fruits are so legendary. Here's my controversial take. Mythical Zoan users might actually be the most powerful devil fruit type overall when you consider their complete package of abilities. Logia users can become intangible, but often lack versatility. Paramecia users can be incredibly creative, but usually have specific limitations. Mythical Zoan users get the physical enhancements of regular Zoans, plus supernatural abilities that seem to have fewer restrictions than other fruit types. The way Marco's flames work is particularly fascinating because they seem to serve multiple functions simultaneously. They provide regeneration, they can apparently be used offensively, and they give him this ethereal, mystical appearance that enhances his intimidation factor. Regular Zoan users get one primary ability from their animal form, but mythical Zoan users get entire suites of legendary powers. The episode also shows how mythical Zoan transformations affect the user's relationship with their environment. Marco is soaring with the grace and majesty of a legendary phoenix. His movements have this otherworldly quality that sets him apart from regular flyers like birds or insects. He's embodying a mythological ideal. What's really scary about mythical Zoan potential is thinking about what other legendary creatures might be represented as devil fruits. If Phoenix regeneration is this powerful, what could a dragon fruit do? What about creatures from different mythologies like Kraken, Thunderbird, or Sphinx? The possibilities are endless, and each one could potentially grant world-changing abilities to their users. The rarity of mythical Zoans also makes sense from a storytelling perspective. If these fruits were common, they would completely unbalance the power structure of the One Piece world. The fact that there are so few of them means that each mythical Zoan user becomes a legendary figure in their own right, which adds weight and significance to every appearance. Marco's performance in this episode establishes a template for how mythical Zoan users operate in high-level combat. They don't just rely on raw strength or speed like regular fighters, they use supernatural abilities that follow mythological rather than biological rules. This makes them unpredictable opponents who can pull off feats that seem impossible to other devil fruit users. The episode demonstrates something crucial about the relationship between the user and mythical Zoan fruit. Marco doesn't just transform into a phoenix, he becomes the embodiment of what phoenixes represent in human mythology. His regeneration is the legendary rebirth cycle that phoenixes are famous for. His flames are the mystical fires of renewal and purification. What bothers me about mythical Zoan classification is how it makes regular Zoan users look almost pathetically weak by comparison. When you can choose between transforming into a regular animal or becoming a legendary creature with supernatural powers, there's really no contest. This creates a massive power gap within the Zoan category that seems almost unfair to regular animal users. The strategic implications of Marco's abilities extend far beyond individual combat too. A fighter who can regenerate from almost any damage becomes an incredible asset for prolonged conflicts like the Marineford War. While other fighters get worn down by accumulated damage and fatigue, Marco can potentially fight at peak efficiency for extended periods thanks to his supernatural recovery. Looking at how Marco's Phoenix form interacts with other high-level abilities, it's clear that mythical Zoans operate on a completely different level from regular devil fruits. His regeneration counters almost any attack-based strategy, his flight negates most positioning advantages, and his mystical flames provide options that opponents can't predict or prepare for effectively. The episode also hints at the deeper lore implications of mythical Zoan fruits. If these fruits allow users to become legendary creatures, what does that say about the relationship between devil fruits and human imagination? Are these fruits somehow connected to collective human beliefs about mythological beings? The connection between myth and reality in devil fruit powers raises fascinating questions about how these abilities actually work. Marco's casual dominance over Kizaru in this episode establishes mythical Zoan users as legitimate threats to even the highest levels of government power. When a pirate can effortlessly handle an admiral's attacks and counter with equal force, it shows that these legendary fruits can upset established power structures in ways that regular devil fruits simply can't match. The visual spectacle of Marco's Phoenix transformation is incredible too. The blue flames, the majestic wingspan, the otherworldly grace of his movements, everything about his mythical form is designed to inspire awe and fear in equal measure. Regular Zoan transformations might be impressive, but they can't compete with the sheer mythological grandeur that mythical Zoans bring to every appearance. What really seals the deal for me about mythical Zoan supremacy is how Marco's abilities seem to have no clear weaknesses or limitations that opponents can exploit. Regular devil fruit users usually have some kind of vulnerability or restriction that skilled opponents can target, but Marco's combination of regeneration, flight, and mystical flames covers almost every tactical angle. The episode proves that mythical Zoan fruits represent the absolute peak of what devil fruit evolution can achieve. They combine the physical enhancements of Zoan transformation with supernatural abilities that transcend normal biological limitations, creating users who operate more like forces of nature than regular fighters. When you can regenerate from almost any damage while wielding legendary powers that exist only in myths, you've essentially transcended the normal rules that govern devil fruit abilities. Mythical Zoans show power at its peak with Marco's Phoenix, but artificial Zoans show the opposite with smiles that ruin lives. Episode 941, Toko's Tears, Orochi's Pitiless Bullets, reveals the absolute horror behind smile devil fruits and why artificial Zoan creation is one of the most evil experiments in the One Piece world. The 10% success rate is a death sentence for human emotion that destroyed entire communities. The episode takes place right after Yasui's execution in Wano, where the Straw Hats and their allies are dealing with the aftermath of losing one of their key supporters. The atmosphere is heavy with grief and anger, but there's something deeply disturbing about how the people of Ebisu Town are reacting to this tragedy. Instead of mourning like normal people, they're laughing uncontrollably at the death of someone they clearly cared about. And this horrifying reaction sets up the revelation of what smile fruits really do to people. The tension builds as Shinobu and Hiyori start explaining the truth behind Kaido's artificial army. Everyone knows that Kaido has been building up his forces with artificial devil fruits, but the real cost of this power grab is something most people never considered. The Straw Hats are learning about the Beast Pirates organization, waiters who haven't eaten smile fruits, gifters who successfully gained powers, and pleasures who ate the fruits but failed to gain abilities. But that clinical classification hides the real human tragedy. Then comes the devastating revelation about what smile fruits actually do to people, and it's way worse than anyone imagined. Shinobu explains that Kaido wanted to increase his army's strength by purchasing artificial Zoan fruits from Doflamingo, but the success rate is only 10%. That means for every 10 people who eat a smile fruit, only 1 actually gains animal powers. The other 9 lose their ability to swim forever and suffer something far worse. They permanently lose the ability to express any emotion except joy. The immediate horror of this revelation hits everyone differently. The Straw Hats are shocked to learn that artificial devil fruits come with such a cruel side effect. But the real tragedy becomes clear when the episode explains what happened to Ebisu Town. This was a poverty-stricken community that survived on food scraps from the capital. Orochi took smile fruits that had already been bitten, meaning they were defective and guaranteed to fail, and gave them to the starving people as their only source of food. The long-term consequences of Orochi's cruelty are absolutely heartbreaking and show how artificial devil fruit failures can be used as weapons of oppression. The people of Ebisu Town had no choice but to eat the defective smile fruits or starve to death, and now they're trapped in a nightmare where they can only express happiness no matter what happens to them. They're mourning Yasui's death inside, but their faces can only show joy, creating this twisted disconnect between their true feelings and their forced expressions. What makes smile fruit failures so much more horrific than regular devil fruit side effects is how they attack human emotional expression. Regular devil fruit users lose their ability to swim, which is a physical limitation. Smile failures lose their ability to properly express their inner emotional life, which is a fundamental part of being human. They can still feel sadness, anger, fear, and grief, but their faces are locked in permanent smiles while their hearts are breaking. The episode shows us how this emotional prison affects entire communities. When Yasui dies, the people who loved him most can only laugh at his execution while tears stream down their faces. They're experiencing the full pain of loss, but they can't express it in a way that brings comfort or allows them to properly mourn. That disconnection between internal feeling and external expression is psychological torture that never ends. Here's what really gets me about Smile fruit production. T-Smile. It was designed as a cheap way to mass-produce devil fruit users. But the creators knew about the 90% failure rate and didn't care. Caesar Clown and Doflamingo were perfectly aware that most people who ate these fruits would suffer permanent emotional damage, but they sold them anyway because there was money to be made. That level of callous disregard for human suffering is genuinely evil. The classification system for Beast Pirates members becomes even more disturbing when you understand what it really represents. Gifters are the lucky 10% who gained powers and probably think the system worked perfectly. Pleasures are the 90% of failures who lost their emotional freedom but are too broken to properly complain about it. Waiters haven't been forced to play this horrific lottery yet, but they're probably next in line for the same treatment. What's particularly cruel about how Orochi used Smile failures is that he specifically targeted the most vulnerable people in Wano. Ebisu Town was already suffering from poverty and food shortages, making them desperate enough to eat anything offered to them. Orochi wanted to break the spirits of people who might oppose him by taking away their ability to properly express dissent or grief. The episode reveals something important about artificial devil fruit creation that most people don't consider: the human cost of trying to replicate natural phenomena through science. Real devil fruits seem to work perfectly every time, giving users exactly the powers they're supposed to have. Artificial versions are cheap knockoffs that destroy lives while only occasionally producing the desired results. It's like the difference between a carefully crafted medicine and a dangerous experimental drug. The psychological warfare aspect of Smile failures is absolutely terrifying. Imagine being conquered by an enemy who forces your community to eat fruits that lock your faces in permanent smiles while your hearts break. You can feel every emotion normally, but you can't express grief at funerals, anger at injustice, or fear during attacks. Your oppressors get to see you happy all the time while they destroy everything you care about. What bothers me most about the Smile system is how it represents the worst aspects of devil fruit commercialization. Natural devil fruits are mysterious, powerful gifts that change people's lives in dramatic ways. Smile fruits are mass-produced weapons designed to create expendable soldiers while destroying the humanity of anyone unlucky enough to fail the genetic lottery. It's the difference between magic and industrial cruelty. The episode shows how Smile failures affect family relationships in heartbreaking ways. Toko can only laugh at her father's death despite loving him deeply, creating this horrible situation where her grief looks like joy to anyone who doesn't know about Smile side effects. How do you comfort someone who can't properly express their pain? How do you mourn together when half your community is locked in artificial happiness? The strategic implications of using Smile failures as weapons are genuinely disturbing. Orochi wanted to break his enemies psychologically by taking away their ability to process trauma normally. When people can't express their pain and anger properly, it becomes much harder for them to organize resistance or support each other through difficult times. Here's my controversial opinion. Smile fruit creation represents one of the most evil scientific projects in the entire One Piece series. Even world government experiments usually have some kind of military or strategic justification. Smile production was designed from the beginning to sacrifice 90% of test subjects for a small chance at creating useful soldiers. That's not science. That's systematic human sacrifice disguised as research. The episode demonstrates how artificial devil fruit failures can be used to destroy entire cultures and communities. Wano's people are known for their strong emotions and passionate responses to injustice, but Smile failures strip that away from them. Orochi is chemically altering his subjects' ability to express opposition to his rule. The economic horror of Smile production becomes clear when you realize how the business model actually worked. Doflamingo and Caesar were selling fruits they knew would fail 90% of the time, but they priced them as if they were guaranteed successes. They were essentially running a scam that destroyed lives while making massive profits from desperate buyers like Kaido, who wanted cheap soldiers. What makes this revelation even worse is understanding that the Smile failures in Wano are proof of concept for a weapon system. If you can force entire populations to eat defective artificial devil fruits, you can break their ability to organize resistance while maintaining the appearance that they're happy with their situation. It's totalitarian control through forced chemical alteration. The episode shows us something important about the relationship between power and consent in devil fruit consumption. Natural devil fruits are usually eaten by choice, with users accepting the swimming limitation in exchange for incredible abilities. Smile fruits were forced on starving people who had no real choice, and the side effects are far worse than anything natural devil fruits cause. Looking at the bigger picture, Smile failures represent everything wrong with trying to artificially replicate natural devil fruit powers. The original fruits seem to be perfectly designed magical items that bond with users in mysterious ways. Smile versions are crude imitations that cause suffering, while only occasionally producing useful results. It's like comparing a master craftsman's work to a factory defect that happens to sometimes function correctly. The tragedy of Ebisu Town proves that artificial devil fruit creation should probably be banned entirely. When your success rate is only 10% and your failures cause permanent psychological damage, you're not creating useful tools, you're manufacturing human misery. The fact that people like Orochi can weaponize these failures against innocent populations makes Smile production a crime against humanity, rather than a legitimate scientific endeavor. Artificial Zoans show how science destroys lives, but Logias show how nature creates untouchable power. Episode 325, The Most Heinous Power, Blackbeard's Darkness Attacks Ace, is the perfect showcase for understanding how Logia devil fruits actually work. And Ace's fire powers demonstrate why these elemental fruits are considered the most broken abilities in the One Piece world. His complete mastery over fire generation, control, and intangibility shows us everything we need to know about Logia fundamentals. The episode takes place on Banero Island, where Ace has finally tracked down Blackbeard after hunting him for months. The Blackbeard pirates are reading about the Straw Hats' recent activities at Enies lobby, and there's this ominous atmosphere as two major powers are about to clash. The townspeople have already been defeated and scattered around, showing that serious business is about to go down. When Ace calls out to teach from a rooftop, you can feel the tension building toward what will become a world-changing battle. The confrontation escalates quickly when Blackbeard tries to recruit Ace and mentions his plan to kill Luffy as a gift to the world government. This is when Ace reveals that Luffy is his little brother, and all negotiations break down immediately. Van Augur shoots Ace with a bullet that passes harmlessly through his fire-based body, demonstrating the first fundamental aspect of Logia powers, ACS, complete intangibility against physical attacks. Ace just smirks because regular weapons can't touch him. Then we get the full display of what Logia mastery really looks like, and Ace shows us why fire-type devil fruits are absolutely terrifying in the hands of someone who understands them. When Burgess throws the entire hotel at him, Ace uses Flame Commandment Fire Pillar to burn it up completely. When he retaliates against the Blackbeard pirates, he launches Fire Fist, his signature move that creates massive columns of flame capable of devastating entire areas. These are demonstrations of complete elemental control. The immediate impact of seeing Ace's Logia abilities in action is incredible. His fire gun technique shoots precise flame projectiles with deadly accuracy. His Firefly Fiery Doll creates floating balls of green fire that can track targets and explode on command. Every attack shows perfect control over fire generation, shaping, and direction. He's wielding fire like a master craftsman uses their tools. The long-term implications of Ace's demonstration reveal the true power gap between Logia users and everyone else in the One Piece world. Regular fighters have to worry about getting hurt by attacks, but Logia users can walk through most dangers completely unharmed. They can generate unlimited amounts of their element, reshape it however they want, and use it for both offense and defense simultaneously. That level of versatility makes them incredibly dangerous opponents. What makes Ace's fire powers so impressive is the sheer variety of techniques he can create from one basic element. Fire Fist delivers overwhelming force through compressed flame columns. Flame Commandment Fire Pillar creates defensive barriers that incinerate incoming attacks. Street Elmo's fire sends twin pillars of flame through opponents with precision accuracy. Crossfire launches intersecting flame attacks that can topple giant rock formations. Each technique serves a different tactical purpose while all stemming from the same fundamental ability to control fire. The episode shows us something crucial about Logia intangibility that most people don't fully understand. When Augur's bullet passes through Ace, it's not that the bullet missed or that Ace dodged it. His body literally became fire, allowing the physical projectile to pass through him without causing any damage. This is a complete transformation of his physical state from solid matter to elemental energy. Here's what really gets me about Logia powers. They represent a fundamental cheat code for combat that most other devil fruit types can't match. Paramecia users have to be creative with specific abilities, and Zoan users rely on enhanced physical stats, but Logia users get complete immunity to most attacks, plus unlimited elemental ammunition. That combination of perfect defense and infinite offense makes them incredibly difficult to defeat. The tactical advantages of Logia transformation become obvious when you watch Ace fight. He never has to worry about dodging physical attacks because they pass right through him. He never runs out of ammunition because he can generate fire endlessly. He can reshape his attacks mid-flight to hit moving targets or change direction. He can even use his element for mobility, essentially becoming a living flame that can move in ways normal humans never could. What's controversial about Logia abilities is how they seem to break the established rules of physics and biology that everyone else has to follow. When Ace becomes fire, where does his mass go? How does his consciousness transfer between solid and elemental states? How can he maintain his human intelligence while existing as pure flame? These fruits operate on principles that go way beyond normal devil fruit logic. The episode reveals something important about Logia Elemental Generation 2. Ace creating fire from nothing through his devil fruit powers. His Great Flame Commandment, Flame Emperor, technique creates a massive fireball that rivals the sun in appearance, showing that Logia users can generate virtually unlimited amounts of their element. That kind of power output would be impossible for normal humans to achieve. The environmental impact of Ace's abilities is absolutely devastating. His flames can burn entire buildings in seconds, melt metal structures, and create explosive attacks that shake the ground. When he and Blackbeard finally clash at full power, their collision threatens to destroy the entire island. That level of destructive capability puts Logia users in a completely different category from regular fighters. What really impresses me about Ace's fire control is the precision he can achieve despite wielding such a destructive element. His Firefly Fiery Doll technique creates small, controlled flames that can navigate complex paths and detonate with surgical precision. He can make his fire hot enough to melt rock, or gentle enough to provide light and warmth. That range of control shows genuine mastery over his elemental powers. The episode demonstrates something crucial about Logia combat philosophy. Ace doesn't fight like a normal person who happens to have fire powers, he fights like living fire that happens to retain human intelligence. His movements, his attacks, and his defensive strategies all revolve around maximizing the advantages that elemental transformation provides while minimizing any potential weaknesses. Here's my controversial take on Logia fundamentals. These fruits might actually be too powerful for the One Piece world's power balance. When you can become intangible to most attacks while generating unlimited elemental ammunition, you're operating with advantages that other devil fruit types simply can't match. The only reason Logia users don't dominate every fight is because Oda has to create artificial limitations to keep battles interesting. The way Ace generates different types of fire attacks shows how Logia mastery goes beyond just basic elemental control. His green Firefly flames behave differently from his orange Fire Fist attacks, suggesting that advanced Logia users can create specialized variations of their element with unique properties. That level of versatility makes them incredibly unpredictable opponents. The episode reveals that Logia intangibility is about maintaining conscious control over that transformation. Ace can selectively make parts of his body intangible while keeping others solid, allowing him to interact with objects and people when needed while remaining immune to attacks. That kind of precise control requires incredible concentration and skill. What bothers me about Logia abilities is how they make most other fighting styles look completely obsolete. Swordsmen, martial artists, and weapon users all become irrelevant when their attacks pass harmlessly through their opponents. This creates a situation where Logia users either dominate completely or face opponents with equally broken abilities, with very little middle ground for interesting tactical battles. The strategic implications of unlimited elemental generation are absolutely insane when you think about them seriously. Ace never has to conserve his energy for special attacks because he can create fire endlessly. He never has to worry about running out of ammunition or finding environmental advantages because he carries his weapon with him at all times. That kind of self-sufficiency makes Logia users incredibly independent fighters. Looking at how Ace's abilities affect the battlefield, it's clear that Logia users don't just participate in fights, they reshape the entire combat environment. His flames change the temperature, lighting, and visibility of the area. His large-scale attacks alter the terrain and destroy cover that other fighters might use. He's controlling the entire battlefield through elemental manipulation. The episode shows us that Logia mastery requires understanding both the offensive and defensive applications of elemental transformation. Ace uses his intangibility to avoid damage while simultaneously generating attacks, creating this seamless combination of perfect defense and unlimited offense that makes him incredibly difficult to counter. That dual-purpose nature of Logia abilities is what makes them so fundamentally different from other devil fruit types. What really seals the deal for me about Logia fundamentals is how Ace's demonstration proves these fruits grant powers that exist beyond normal human limitations. He's become fire itself, with all the advantages that elemental existence provides. When you can transform between solid and energy states at will while maintaining human consciousness, you've essentially transcended normal physical existence. Logia fundamentals show Ace's fire as pure power, but classic Logia powers show Crocodile's sand as power with a weakness. But don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Episode 122, Sand Crocodile and Water Luffy, Deathmatch. Round 2 is the perfect demonstration of how classic Logia devil fruits work, and why they're considered nearly invincible until someone discovers their specific weakness. Crocodile's sand powers show us everything we need to know about Logia mastery, while Luffy's water strategy reveals the one thing that can turn these godlike abilities into a major problem. The episode takes place during the climax of the Arabasta arc, with Crocodile's massive bomb plot about to destroy the capital and wipe out both the rebel and royal armies. There's only 10 minutes left before a cannon fires that will kill everyone within 5 kilometers. Meanwhile, Vivi and the other Straw Hats are desperately searching for the bomb while Luffy faces off against one of the 7 warlords in what should be an impossible fight for a rubber boy. The tension builds perfectly as Luffy demands Crocodile get up and fight, while the warlord just laughs at him. Crocodile's confidence is absolutely terrifying because he knows exactly how powerful he island. When Luffy claims he'll be the 8th warlord if Crocodile is one of the 7, it shows the massive gap in experience and reputation between them. Cobra can't believe what he's hearing. This kid is challenging one of the most feared pirates in the world, like it's no big deal. Then we get the full showcase of what classic Logia powers really look like, and Crocodile demonstrates why these elemental fruits are considered broken abilities. Even though Luffy figured out that water can let him hit Crocodile's sand body, the warlord is still completely confident because he has a counter strategy. He can absorb any fluid in Luffy's body through his sand powers, basically turning Luffy's own moisture against him. When he dehydrates Luffy's arm, it shows how Logia users can weaponize their element in ways that go beyond simple attacks. The immediate impact of seeing Crocodile's full sand mastery is absolutely devastating. His ground secco technique dehydrates everything around them, turning the entire palace area into a desert wasteland. He's creating it by sucking the moisture out of everything in the environment. The effects are felt throughout the palace as plants die and the ground turns to dust. What makes Crocodile's sand abilities so scary is how they combine the classic Logia intangibility with genuinely deadly side effects. Regular Logia users can avoid physical damage by becoming their element, but Crocodile can actively drain the life out of his opponents through dehydration. His sand doesn't just pass through attacks, it absorbs moisture from anything it touches, making him incredibly dangerous even in close combat. Here's what really gets me about classic Logia powers. They're designed to be completely unfair advantages until someone figures out the one specific thing that can counter them. Crocodile has probably won hundreds of fights through pure intangibility and environmental control, but the moment Luffy brings water into the equation, his godlike powers become a major liability. That's both the strength and weakness of Logia fruits. They're incredibly powerful, but have specific vulnerabilities. The episode reveals something crucial about Logia weaknesses that most people don't understand. When Luffy drinks the entire barrel of water and becomes Water Luffy, he's exploiting a fundamental vulnerability that all Logia users share. Every elemental power has some natural opposite or weakness that can completely negate their intangibility. And discovering that weakness changes everything about the fight. Honestly, I think Luffy's Water Luffy strategy is both genius and absolutely ridiculous at the same time. The guy literally bloats himself with water like a balloon and then spits it at his opponent. It looks completely stupid, but it works because it catches Crocodile off guard and negates his main advantage. Sometimes, the most effective strategies are the ones nobody expects because they seem too simple or silly. The tactical applications of Crocodile's sand control are insane when you think about them. He can travel through sand for perfect stealth, create sandstorms to blind opponents, dehydrate enemies through direct contact, and reshape entire battlefields to his advantage. His Twister of Sand technique shows how he can manipulate air currents and create devastating area attacks that are nearly impossible to dodge. What's controversial about Logia abilities is how they seem to operate on completely different rules from other devil fruit types. When Crocodile absorbs moisture from the environment with ground secco, He's basically performing large-scale terraforming in real time. That level of environmental manipulation goes way beyond what most other fruit users can achieve, making Logia fruits seem like they belong in a different power category entirely. The way Crocodile fights shows us something important about Logia combat philosophy. He doesn't just use his sand powers for direct attacks. He uses them to control every aspect of the battlefield. He can deny opponents solid ground to stand on, create vision-blocking sandstorms, and even manipulate the moisture levels in the air. His approach to combat is about achieving total environmental control rather than just overwhelming force. Luffy's water strategy reveals both the genius and limitations of exploiting Logia weaknesses. When he bloats himself with water and squirts it at Crocodile, he successfully negates the sand user's intangibility and lands a devastating Gomu Gomu no Bazooka attack. But this advantage is temporary. Once Crocodile figures out the strategy, he can absorb the water directly and turn Luffy's countermeasure against him. What really impresses me about Crocodile's sand mastery is the precision he can achieve with such a chaotic element. Sand is naturally loose and difficult to control, but he can form it into specific shapes, direct it with pinpoint accuracy, and even use it for delicate operations like absorbing moisture from specific body parts. That level of elemental control shows genuine mastery over his Devil Fruit abilities. The episode shows how Logia users can layer multiple advantages on top of each other for overwhelming tactical superiority. Crocodile's intangibility makes him nearly impossible to hit. His dehydration abilities make close combat extremely dangerous for opponents. His environmental control lets him reshape battlefields, and his sand transportation gives him perfect mobility. Fighting a Master Logia user is like facing multiple opponents with different specialties all at once. Here's my controversial take on classic Logia powers. They might actually be poorly designed from a storytelling perspective because they're too powerful when used intelligently. Crocodile could theoretically end most fights in seconds by completely dehydrating his opponents, but he doesn't because that would make for boring battles. The need to create dramatic tension forces Logia users to fight in ways that don't fully use their broken abilities. The way Crocodile's weakness interacts with his powers reveals something fascinating about Devil Fruit design. Water doesn't just negate his intangibility, it actively works against his dehydration abilities, creating a situation where his greatest strength becomes a major liability. When he's wet, he can't absorb moisture from opponents, can't become intangible, and can't use his environmental manipulation techniques effectively. The episode demonstrates that discovering a Logia weakness isn't enough. You need to be able to exploit it consistently under combat conditions. Luffy's water strategy works temporarily, but maintaining that advantage against an experienced Logia user is incredibly difficult. Crocodile adapts quickly, learning to absorb Luffy's water directly and turn the weakness exploitation against him. What bothers me about Logia intangibility is how it makes most combat skills completely useless. Swordsmanship, martial arts, and weapon mastery all become irrelevant against opponents who can let attacks pass through them harmlessly. This creates a situation where fights are often decided by who has the right element rather than who has better technique or strategy. The environmental impact of Crocodile's abilities shows how Logia users can affect areas far beyond their immediate combat zone. His ground Sekko technique transforms the entire palace grounds, creating lasting changes that affect everyone in the area. That kind of large-scale environmental manipulation makes Logia users incredibly dangerous, even when they're not directly fighting someone. Looking at how Crocodile's sand powers interact with the natural world, it's clear that Logia abilities operate on principles that go way beyond normal physics. He can selectively absorb moisture while leaving other substances untouched, create sand from apparently nothing, and manipulate air currents through localized pressure changes. These fruits seem to grant users control over fundamental forces of nature rather than just simple elemental transformation. The episode reveals that classic Logia mastery requires understanding both the offensive and defensive applications of elemental powers. Crocodile uses his sand for direct attacks, environmental control, stealth movement, and biological manipulation simultaneously. That multi-layered approach to combat makes experienced Logia users incredibly versatile opponents who can adapt to almost any fighting style. I think what makes Crocodile so terrifying as an opponent is his combination of raw power and tactical intelligence. He's constantly adapting his strategy and finding new ways to exploit his advantages. When Luffy brings water into the fight, Crocodile doesn't panic or get frustrated. He immediately starts thinking of ways to counter the counter, which shows why he's survived as a warlord for so long. The psychological impact of fighting someone like Crocodile must be absolutely crushing for most opponents. How do you stay motivated when your attacks pass harmlessly through your enemy, while they can kill you just by touching you? How do you develop strategies against someone who can reshape the entire battlefield at will? Most people would probably give up before even trying to fight seriously. What really strikes me about this episode is how it shows that even broken abilities have limits and vulnerabilities. Crocodile seems completely invincible for most of the series, but the moment water enters the equation, he becomes beatable. That's both reassuring and terrifying. It means every Logia user has some weakness, but you have to be smart enough and lucky enough to discover it before they kill you. The tragic irony of Luffy's defeat at the end shows how temporary advantages against Logia users can be. Even with water to counter Crocodile's intangibility, Luffy still loses because the warlord adapts his strategy and turns the weakness exploitation against him. That flexibility and adaptability is what makes experienced Logia users so dangerous. They don't just rely on raw power. They use tactical intelligence to maintain their advantages, even when their primary abilities are compromised. The episode also demonstrates something important about the relationship between Devil Fruit mastery and combat experience. Crocodile has been using his sand powers for years, probably decades, and he's developed techniques and strategies that go way beyond basic elemental control. His ability to absorb moisture directly from opponents, create environmental hazards, and maintain tactical awareness while using his powers shows the level of mastery that comes from extensive real-world combat experience. What really seals the deal for me about classic Logia superiority is how Crocodile's demonstration proves these fruits grant abilities that exist on a completely different level from other Devil Fruit types. His combination of intangibility, environmental control, and life-draining attacks creates a fighting style that's almost impossible to counter without specific knowledge of his weaknesses. When you can become untouchable while reshaping entire battlefields and slowly killing opponents through proximity, you've basically transcended normal combat limitations. Classic Logia powers show Crocodile using sand to dominate battlefields with one fatal flaw, but rare Logia types like Kizaru's Light prove some elements erase weaknesses entirely. Episode 404, Admiral Kizaru's Fierce Attack U, the Straw Hat Crew's Desperate Situation, showcases the most broken Logia Devil Fruit in the entire One Piece world. And Kizaru's light-based powers prove why rare elemental types are considered absolutely unstoppable forces of nature. His combination of light speed movement and devastating laser attacks demonstrates what happens when you take Logia intangibility and add the fastest element in existence. The episode takes place during the chaos at Sabaody Archipelago, where the Straw Hats are already beaten down and exhausted from fighting pacifistas and dealing with the aftermath of punching a celestial dragon. Meanwhile, Kid and Law's crews are also fighting their own battle against another pacifista, showing that all the rookie pirates are in serious trouble. The atmosphere is pure desperation as multiple pirate crews realize they're completely outmatched by the world government's forces. The tension reaches its peak when Sentomaru has Luffy completely at his mercy, while Kizaru is literally standing on top of Zoro, about to execute him with a light-powered kick. Usopp desperately tries to shoot Kizaru to save Zoro, but all his attacks pass harmlessly through the Admiral's light body. Brook attempts to slash him with his sword, but it goes straight through as well. This is when Kizaru casually explains that they're wasting time because his Glint Glint fruit is a Logia type, and physical attacks can't touch him. Then we get the full demonstration of what rare Logia mastery really looks like, and Kizaru shows us why light-based devil fruits are the most terrifying powers imaginable. When he's about to finish off Zoro with a light kick blast, his leg literally glows with concentrated light energy that could vaporize a human being. The casual way he uses light-speed movement to instantly appear wherever he wants on the battlefield shows how completely broken his mobility is compared to every other fighter. The immediate impact of Kizaru's light abilities is absolutely devastating to witness. When Rayleigh suddenly appears and kicks away Kizaru's light attack, it shows that it takes someone of legendary status just to intercept his moves. The Admiral can use Yata no Kagami to travel at light speed across the battlefield, making him basically impossible to escape from or catch. His Ama no Murakumo technique creates a sword made of pure light, proving he can turn his element into any weapon he needs. What makes Kizaru's light powers so incredibly broken is how they combine the worst aspects of every other Logia type. He has Crocodile's intangibility, but without the water weakness. He has destructive power that rivals Akainu's magma, but with perfect accuracy. He has mobility that makes every other Devil Fruit user look like they're moving in slow motion. When you can move at light speed while shooting lasers and staying completely untouchable, you're basically playing by different rules than everyone else. The episode shows us something crucial about rare Logia types that most people don't understand. Kizaru's abilities represent fundamental forces of nature that operate on completely different principles. Light doesn't behave like fire or sand or ice. It moves at speeds that make normal combat reflexes useless, and it can be focused into beams that cut through virtually anything. Here's what really gets me about Kizaru's fighting style. He's not even trying hard, and he's still completely dominating multiple rookie crews at the same time. When he casually explains that physical attacks can't hurt him because he's a Logia user, there's this dismissive tone like he's dealing with children who don't understand basic physics. That level of casual superiority is terrifying because it shows the massive gap between rare Logia users and everyone else. Honestly, I think the way Kizaru talks is almost as scary as his powers. He's got this slow, lazy way of speaking that makes it sound like he's bored while casually threatening to kill people. It's like he's so confident in his abilities that he doesn't even consider the Straw Hats a real threat worth getting excited about. The tactical uses of light-based powers are absolutely insane when you think about them. Kizaru can appear instantly anywhere within his line of sight, making ambushes and escape attempts completely pointless. His laser attacks travel at light speed, making them basically impossible to dodge unless you have superhuman reflexes or can see the future. He can create light constructs like swords and mirrors, giving him unlimited weapon options. What's controversial about Kizaru's abilities is how they seem to break basic storytelling rules about fair fights and overcoming challenges through hard work. How do you train to fight someone who moves at light speed? How do you develop strategies against attacks that hit you before you can react? His powers are so fundamentally overpowered that most opponents don't stand a chance, no matter how hard they work or how clever they are. The episode reveals something important about the relationship between elemental rarity and combat power. Common elements like fire, water, or earth can be powerful, but they operate within normal physical rules. Rare elements like light represent forces that exist beyond normal matter and energy, granting abilities that seem almost magical compared to regular Logia fruits. The way Kizaru's light-speed movement works is particularly impressive because it's genuine teleportation through light reflection. His Yata no Kagami technique lets him bounce between shiny surfaces at light speed, basically giving him unlimited mobility as long as there's anything that can reflect light. That's way more versatile than simple super speed. The episode demonstrates how rare Logia users can completely control the pace and flow of battles through their unique properties. Kizaru doesn't have to worry about positioning, timing, or saving energy like normal fighters do. He can instantly appear wherever he's needed, attack with light speed, precision, and retreat before opponents can counterattack. That level of tactical flexibility is almost impossible to overcome. What really bothers me about Kizaru's laser attacks is how they seem to have unlimited range and perfect accuracy. Regular weapons have travel time and accuracy problems, but light beams hit their targets instantly over any distance. When he shoots lasers during the episode, the beams travel in perfectly straight lines and hit exactly where he aims them. The psychological impact of fighting someone like Kizaru must be absolutely crushing for most opponents. How do you stay motivated when your enemy can appear behind you faster than you can blink and shoot lasers that you can't dodge? Most people would probably give up immediately once they realized how impossible the challenge really island. I think what makes this episode so effective is how it shows the Straw Hats' complete helplessness against a truly high-level opponent. They've been getting stronger throughout their journey, but Kizaru makes them look like complete amateurs. It's a harsh reality check about how much stronger they need to become. The episode shows how rare Logia abilities can make traditional combat skills almost completely useless. Swordsmanship, martial arts, and tactical positioning all become meaningless when your opponent can move at light speed and attack from any angle instantly. This creates a situation where fights are determined more by who has the most broken devil fruit than who has better training or strategy. Looking at how Kizaru's powers interact with the environment, it's clear that light-based abilities operate on principles that go way beyond normal elemental control. He can reflect off surfaces, focus his light into cutting beams, and apparently generate unlimited amounts of light energy without any visible strain or tiredness. These rare Logia types seem to grant users control over fundamental physical forces rather than just simple elemental transformation. What strikes me most about this episode is how it establishes that there are different levels within the already overpowered Logia category. Regular Logia users like Crocodile or Smoker are incredibly strong, but Kizaru represents a completely different level of power that operates by different rules. His light-based abilities are so fundamentally superior that they make other Logia fruits look ordinary by comparison. The way Rayleigh has to step in to save the Straw Hats proves that rare Logia users require equally legendary opponents to counter them effectively. You can't just be strong or clever or determined of eyes. You need someone with comparable power levels and decades of experience to stand a chance against abilities that operate at light speed. The fact that this episode ends with Kuma making Zoro disappear just adds insult to injury. The Straw Hats are already completely outmatched by one admiral, and then another warlord shows up to make things even worse. It really drives home how unprepared they are for the new world level of opposition. What really seals the deal about rare Logia superiority is how Kizaru's demonstration proves these fruits grant abilities that exist beyond normal combat rules. His combination of perfect intangibility, light-speed movement, and devastating laser attacks creates a fighting style that's basically impossible to counter without specific advantages or overwhelming power differences. When you can become light itself while keeping human intelligence and tactical awareness, you've basically gone beyond normal fighting entirely. Rare Logia types show Kizaru turning light into an unbeatable weapon that bends combat rules, but multiple Devil Fruit consumption with Blackbeard proves even those limits can be broken. Episode 486, the opening of the show. Blackbeard's plot is revealed, completely breaks every rule we thought we knew about Devil Fruit consumption, and Blackbeard's impossible dual powers prove that some people can somehow cheat the fundamental laws that govern these mysterious abilities. His combination of the Yami Yami no Mi and Gura Gura no Mi creates the first confirmed case of someone wielding two Devil Fruit powers simultaneously. The episode takes place right after Whitebeard's death at Marineford, with the entire world watching as news spreads about the fall of one of the four emperors. The atmosphere is chaotic as pirates flee, Marines celebrate their victory, and civilians across the globe try to process what this means for the future. Meanwhile, Jinbei is desperately trying to escape with an unconscious Luffy, while Akainu continues his relentless pursuit, and the Blackbeard pirates are preparing to reveal their master plan. The tension builds as Teach orders his crew to cover Whitebeard's corpse with a black curtain, creating this ominous spectacle that draws everyone's attention. Even his own crew members seem nervous about whatever he's planning, with Shiryu commenting that if their plan fails, they could all be finished. Teach announces that everyone, Marines, pirates, and civilians, needs to watch their show, then disappears under the black cloth with Whitebeard's body. Then comes the moment that changes everything we understand about Devil Fruit limitations, and Blackbeard emerges with powers that should be impossible for any human to possess. When his crew lifts the black cloth, Teach demonstrates that he now has both his original Yami no Mi darkness abilities and Whitebeard's devastating Gura Gura no Mi earthquake powers. He shows his darkness power in his right hand while punching with tremor abilities in his left, causing Marineford itself to crumble. The immediate shock of seeing dual Devil Fruit powers is absolutely incredible to witness. Every Marine and pirate watching is stunned because they know this should kill anyone who attempts it. The established rule throughout the entire series has been that eating two Devil Fruits causes your body to explode from conflicting powers. But somehow, Blackbeard is not only surviving but thriving with abilities from two completely different fruit categories. The long-term implications of Blackbeard's impossible achievement completely reshape the power structure of the One Piece world. If someone can possess multiple Devil Fruit abilities, then every assumption about power limits and strategic balance gets thrown out the window. Teach doesn't just become stronger, he becomes a walking contradiction to natural law that proves the Devil Fruit system has loopholes or exceptions that nobody understood before. What makes Blackbeard's dual powers so terrifying is how they complement each other perfectly. His Yami Yami no Mi can nullify other Devil Fruit abilities and absorb attacks, while his new Gura Gura no Mi can create devastating earthquake attacks that destroy entire islands. The combination gives him both the ultimate defense against Devil Fruit users and the ultimate offensive power for large-scale destruction. The episode reveals something crucial about how Blackbeard obtained Whitebeard's powers that most people miss. He went under that black cloth with Whitebeard's corpse and somehow extracted or transferred the Gura Gura no Mi ability from the dead emperor. The exact method isn't shown, but it's clear that his crew had this planned from the beginning, suggesting they know something about Devil Fruit mechanics that the rest of the world doesn't. Here's what really gets me about this whole situation, wife. Blackbeard didn't just stumble into having two Devil Fruits by accident. This was a carefully planned operation that required killing Thatch for the Yami Yami no Mi, infiltrating Whitebeard's crew, starting the Marineford War, and then somehow transferring Whitebeard's power after his death. That level of long-term planning shows Teach understands devil fruit science way better than anyone else. The way Blackbeard's darkness powers might enable multiple fruit consumption is fascinating when you think about it. His Yami Yami no Mi can absorb and nullify other devil fruit abilities, so maybe it can also somehow contain or manage conflicting devil fruit energies within his body. Instead of the powers destroying each other, his darkness might act like a buffer that keeps them separate. What's controversial about Blackbeard's achievement is how it makes every other devil fruit user look like they're playing by unnecessary limitations. If multiple fruit consumption is possible under certain conditions, then every powerful character who stuck to one ability was potentially holding themselves back. The entire power balance of the series changes when you realize some people might be able to collect devil fruit abilities like trading cards. The episode demonstrates how Blackbeard's dual powers create attack combinations that shouldn't exist. He can use his darkness to pull enemies toward him, then hit them with earthquake punches when they get close. He can absorb enemy attacks with his Yami Yami no Mi, while simultaneously launching tremor attacks with his Gura Gura no Mi. That kind of multi-layered combat ability is completely unprecedented. Honestly, I think Blackbeard represents everything that's both exciting and problematic about breaking established rules in storytelling. His dual devil fruit powers are visually spectacular and conceptually mind-blowing, but they also raise questions about why this limitation existed in the first place if it can be bypassed. The tactical applications of having both darkness and earthquake powers are absolutely broken when you consider them seriously. Blackbeard can create black holes to absorb attacks, while generating tremors to destabilize opponents' footing. He can use darkness for defense and crowd control, while using earthquakes for massive area damage. The versatility is incredible. What bothers me about Blackbeard's powers is how they seem to operate without the normal costs or limitations that other devil fruit users face. Most people have to choose between offense and defense, or between wide area attacks and precise strikes. Teach gets the best of both worlds without any apparent downsides or energy conflicts between his abilities. The episode shows how multiple devil fruit consumption affects the user's relationship with their abilities. Blackbeard doesn't seem to struggle with controlling two different power sets, uses them as naturally as if he'd always had both. This suggests that whatever method he used to acquire Whitebeard's power also granted him instinctive mastery over the earthquake abilities. The psychological impact of seeing someone break the most fundamental rule of devil fruit consumption must be devastating for other fruit users. Everything they thought they knew about the limits of their powers just got proven wrong by someone who figured out how to cheat the system. That kind of paradigm shift would shake anyone's confidence in their understanding of how the world works. Looking at how Blackbeard's achievement might change devil fruit research and development, it's possible that other scientists or powerful individuals will start investigating multiple fruit consumption. If Teach figured out the secret, then maybe others can too, potentially leading to an arms race of people trying to collect multiple abilities. The episode reveals that Blackbeard's success with dual devil fruits is about understanding systems that others take for granted. While most people accept that eating two devil fruits is fatal, Teach found a way around that limitation through careful planning, specific fruit selection, and possibly unique biological factors that make him different from normal humans. What really strikes me about this revelation is how it reframes Blackbeard's entire character arc. He's a scientific innovator who figured out how to transcend natural limitations that have constrained everyone else for centuries. His achievement represents a fundamental breakthrough in devil fruit science that could change everything. The way Blackbeard announces his new era while demonstrating dual powers shows how multiple devil fruit consumption is about reshaping the entire power structure of the world. When one person can possess abilities that were previously impossible, they essentially become a force of nature that operates by different rules than everyone else. The episode proves that multiple devil fruit consumption represents the ultimate evolution of devil fruit mastery. Blackbeard's combination of darkness, absorption, and earthquake generation creates a fighting style that covers every tactical situation while maintaining advantages that other users can't match. When you can nullify enemy abilities while generating world-shaking attacks, you've essentially transcended the normal limitations that govern devil fruit combat. Blackbeard proves one man can hold two fruits, but devil fruit inheritance shows the fruits themselves can choose who holds them. Episode 10, 71. Luffy's Peak attained. Gear 5 completely changes how we understand devil fruit distribution when the five elders reveal that Luffy's Gomu no Mi, is actually the mythical Zoan Hito, Hito no Mi, model Nika, and they've been trying to capture this specific fruit for years because it kept evading them. The episode takes place during Luffy's awakening on top of the Skull Dome, where he's finally unlocked his true Devil Fruit powers after being defeated by Kaido. Meanwhile, at Mary Geoise, the five elders are panicking because they sacrificed CP0 agent Guernica in a desperate attempt to prevent Luffy's awakening. Their conversation reveals something incredible about how certain devil fruits seem to choose their users rather than being randomly distributed. The tension builds as the five elders explain that despite being officially classified as a paramecia fruit, Luffy's power is actually a mythical Zoan that transforms the user into the legendary Sunday god Nika. What's most shocking is their admission that the world government has been trying to acquire this fruit for years, but it kept evading capture, almost as if the fruit were evading them. The revelation that devil fruits can actively evade capture suggests they have some kind of consciousness or destiny that guides them to specific users. The Nika fruit didn't end up with Luffy by accident. 79. It somehow found its way to someone whose personality and dreams align with the sun god's nature of bringing joy and liberation to others. That's not random distribution, that's intelligent selection. The immediate impact of this revelation completely reframes every devil fruit user we've ever seen. When you realize that fruits might choose their users based on compatibility, suddenly every devil fruit pairing makes more sense. Luffy got the freedom-loving sun god fruit, Law got the medical miracle fruit, and Blackbeard somehow acquired the darkness fruit that matches his evil nature. The long-term implications of devil fruit inheritance are absolutely massive for understanding the One Piece world. If fruits actively seek out compatible users, then every major devil fruit user might be destined for their role rather than just being lucky. This suggests there's some kind of cosmic plan or inherited will that guides these legendary powers to the people who can best fulfill their purpose. Devil fruit inheritance shows Luffy's Nika fruit was chosen, but future implications reveal Vegapunk's idea that all fruits come from human desire. Episode 1100, Powers on a Different Level, Luffy vs. Lucci, reveals Vegapunk's groundbreaking theory that devil fruits are created when someone desperately desires a specific power, and this connects directly to the search for One Piece and the mysteries of ancient history. The episode takes place on Egghead Island, where Luffy and Lucci are battling in their awakened forms, while Vegapunk explains devil fruit origins to the Straw Hats. This happens during the chaos of CP0's mission to eliminate Vegapunk, with marine reinforcements on the way and the Seraphim switching sides based on command priorities. The build-up to Vegapunk's explanation comes as he watches Luffy's Gear 5 transformation with fascination, noting that the Gomu Gomu no Mi isn't in older devil fruit encyclopedias. This leads him to share his revolutionary theory about how devil fruits actually come into existence. It is they manifest when human desires become strong enough to create physical fruits that grant those exact powers. Vegapunk's theory that devil fruits are born from human desires completely changes how we understand the connection between devil fruits and ancient history. If fruits are created by powerful wishes, then every devil fruit represents someone's desperate dream from the past. This means the devil fruits we see today are basically archaeological evidence of what people throughout history wanted most desperately. The immediate implications of this theory suggest that the search for One Piece might be connected to the original desires that created the most powerful devil fruits. If mythical Zoans like Nika's fruit represent the strongest human dreams, then One Piece itself might be the ultimate manifestation of human desire, possibly the wish for true freedom that created the entire devil fruit system. The long-term repercussions point toward a future where understanding devil fruit origins becomes crucial for finding One Piece. If Roger and his crew discovered the truth about how human desires create these powers, then One Piece might contain the key to either creating new devil fruits or understanding why certain fruits seek out specific users. This could explain why the world government fears both devil fruit research and the discovery of One Piece, NHO. They might be connected aspects of the same ancient secret about human will, transcending natural limitations. If you enjoyed our video today, subscribe to our channel for more videos on One Piece.